Welcome to the Chain Out podcast with your hosts, Jeremy and Daryl.
Hey everybody, welcome to Chain Out Podcast, episode 32. I'm Jeremy, and that good-looking guy in yellow over there, that's your favorite co-host, Daryl. How's it going, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic, Jeremy. How are you doing? Thank
Well,
you for
just always trying to give you an intro that's worthy of your status, my friend.
Oh, that was a glorious intro, and I'll accept it this one time and this one time only.
All right. I know, the flattery doesn't always work, but you're glowing, essentially, so I wanted to give you a glowing intro. There you go. How was your day?
It was a fantastic day. Got to go out and, as always, play my anytime round at the hills. A little bit windy, a little bit of a swirly wind this time. Not the normal headwind on hole one. It was more of a tailwind, so it kind of helped out on the hole one. Didn't bogey it like I normally do, but it kind of hindered on a few of the other holes. So when you're used to throwing a certain shot on a certain hole, and then you throw the same shot and it goes 50 feet past the basket, and you're wondering why you've ever thrown that disc that far before. But -3 in the wind, one bogey, I will take it.
Oh, there you go. I was wondering, I didn't know if the wind would help you get better than that -7 from last week, but it turns out that that wind was a little bit of a defeating factor, but a -3, you can't be upset with that. That's a great score.
Thank you. I will take it. How about you? When's the last time you got out to play?
I got out on the weekend and went out to that open house that was in Fort Saskatchewan, and I got a chance to meet Curtis and Daryl from the Fort Saskatchewan disc golf group, played their little pop-up course. It was a great time. So much fluff out there, though, Daryl. It was almost like trudging through snow. It was definitely like a layer over the grass. So, yeah.
Well, at least it was fluff and not faff, because we don't like faff.
No faffing around on this show. That's for sure. Well, why don't we tell everybody what we got coming up?
Yeah, we should do that, right?
I think
so. Of course,
so.
It's an episode of Chain Out Podcast, so we have to have an Edgar #1 tag update.
Yeah, that gives us some good local content every week. That's for sure. And then otherwise, we talked about it last week, Daryl, that we were going to tell everybody about a review on a disc. This time we're going to do it.
We've made room. We've made time. We're going to do the review. Thank you for the disc.
Yeah.
Also, we got our big interview, not only with one, but with two people. We got Matt and Andre coming up later on in the episode, so stay tuned for that.
Oh, totally excited. And also, the third Canadian A-tier is coming up this weekend, which is the BC Open. We're going to do our Chain Out Fantasy Disc Golf Picks Reminder. So we'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. And then we've got our next big tournament, not the BC Open, but we're going to be part of the River City Cup this weekend. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well.
And then we'll give you, as always, let you know what our Canadian pros are doing on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Do an update for that.
Yeah. And then, as always, start thinking now, start listening out, start listening, thinking of words for the secret word, which I don't even know if it's a thing anymore, Jeremy. People
nobody's using it, but we have fun.
Nobody's using it, but it kind of we get some engagement on the live episode, but nobody's going back and watching the after episodes, and they're not putting in the secret words. But maybe we'll just keep beating a dead horse until.
Well, they're watching it. I just don't know if they're watching it that long, and that was the goal. So we're seeing the view count, but maybe just not all the way to the end view count.
Exactly. And then if you've got any questions for us, definitely get them in the chat as well.
Perfect. So let me get into the #1 tag update. So last week, King Riley, as I dubbed him, was still holding the #1 Edgar tag. He didn't seem to make a response either way on that title, so I think he's okay with it. So he wanted some challengers, if you remember. He wanted some big hitters, and boy, did he get some big hitters. He got himself, Sean Heidebrecht.
Okay.
Greg Gatzke.
Wow, yeah.
And then also Chad Gamlin. So those are some big names on that card.
3 big names in Edmonton disc golf for sure.
Yeah, and from what I understand, it was a pretty good round that was happening there, and kind of tight. Nobody was going lights out, but everyone was playing pretty good. Yeah. And then Sean, in the last 5 holes, he went birdie, 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 5 birdies, and finished the round with a -8. So he finished with a -8. Chad also finished with a -8.
Right.
And as a result, Riley had a tag #2. So he ended up, not Riley. Sean had tag #2. Right. So he ended up taking tag #1. Chad took tag #2. And now we got a new king of the hill, and that's Sean Heidebrecht. So.
Well, Yeah. I mean, no, I mean, it's a
You
new
seem
person.
unimpressed.
We just keep mentioning the same names, so it's kind of I think it's time for. Yeah, I mean, he took on Greg Gatsky and Chad Gamlin, who we haven't mentioned before, and they fully deserve it. They're quite what's the word I'm looking for?
They're
Able
seasoned
to take. Yeah,
veterans
they're
and
seasoned. Yeah,
pros,
they're
yeah.
able to take the number one tag. It wouldn't be like me and you trying to take off the number one tag. Like, yeah, they'd have to be playing pretty bad, and we'd have to shoot lights out for us to be able to get that number one tag. But at least those players are actually have the ability to get the number one tag off those people.
Yeah. Well, let's throw this out there and say, guys, if you want to spot us some strokes, you can take on a challenge against Daryl and Jeremy. We'll come out there, but you're going to have to give us some strokes. So you tell us what it'll be and tell us when, and we'll challenge you for the number one tag. I think that's the only way it's going to fly.
And it has to start with double number. It has to be in double figures.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, the other thing about that, just real quick, is that our guests today also put out videos. And one of the videos they put out was River City Cup. And they recorded last year and recorded the MPO for the first round. And I watched the front nine. And on original hole 8, Sean Heidebrecht is on coverage there. The guy from original hole 8 up the hill with the trees in the middle, and you kind of got to hyzer around.
Is that the one that maybe you can add extra 50 feet because it's uphill?
That's the one. And he goes out and he throws this huge hyzer and he hits cage on that Daryl. Wow. Like he was that close to having a hole in one on that hole.
Exactly. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So go check that out. But let's get moving along. We got a disc review.
We have a disc review. We teased it last episode. We never got around to it, but it's time for it now. We would like to thank friend of the show, listener of the show, should I say, Sam Western. Sam Western, he's a member of EDGA. You've probably seen him at Rundle League. He's always there. He's there sometimes with his girlfriend, Sam. So they're Sam Squared. He very graciously, it was a Kickstarter program. He went on there. He bought 3 discs, or I guess he bought 4 discs because he ended up having one for himself. He got one for his girlfriend. And then very graciously gave you and I a disc as well. So it's called the Chickadee.
Yes.
It's made by a company called Grassland Disc. So you've probably never heard of them. There's probably a reason why you've never heard of them. And Jeremy can show you right on the back there. TPU. These are 100% recycled, 100% recyclable, 3D printed, PDGA approved discs.
Yes. Yeah, it's amazing. Like these discs, it was kind of neat that we've had a few different things come out to us. And one of these was from Sam, who just wanted to help us out and get us to try something, support Canadian like we always want to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is a very interesting disc. It's the first time I've ever heard of a 3D printed disc that actually flies. You've seen some in the videos, like the guy out of Lat 64, he had printed one and it didn't do anything. But
yeah, exactly. And what surprised me was with this plastic, like it's flexible. It's not brittle. Like most things that I think of for 3D printing, I always think of being brittle. Like you think it's going to hit a tree and it will dent right away. But this doesn't seem to be like that. I've only thrown it a couple times. I think I've maybe thrown it on 2 or 3 holes. And there's a reason for that.
Because it does say 2303. And that last 3 should probably be slightly larger and slightly more bolded than it is on this disc. Because
if you looked at it in a mirror and it was an 8, maybe that would be, if you put those 2 3s back to back, it would be, it's very beefy. Yes. Even beefier than your Zone OS, I would say. I mean, I've never thrown a Zone OS, but she beefy.
And what we find with it too is that I've thrown it a few times as well, and that's right. Like it's always going to hyzer out for you. It was kind of nice. So I did a couple choppy forehands where I really threw it on a hard Annie, and it always came back as long as you gave it enough height for it to come back. But it's a great little disc. If you guys want to try it out, come see us. If you catch us on the course, we'll let you give it a throw.
Absolutely. So thank you very much, Sam.
We appreciate it. And I was going to say, Daryl, the other way you can find Sam if you want when you're on the course is usually in the winter or on the edge of winter when everybody else is wearing jackets and wearing pants and everything else. You'll find Sam in his shorts. That's how you're going to spot him.
Yeah, exactly. You'll see him. He's very easily spottable.
Yes, definitely, for sure. Now, shall we get to it, Daryl?
Are you ready? I'm ready.
I'm ready. Is everybody else ready, do you think?
I think everybody's ready. Let's go for it.
Well, let's hit it. So we got two guests for you tonight. One of them is from Edmonton, Alberta. The other one is from Invermere BC. They started the Canadian Disc Golf Tour last year. They take photos and videos of disc golf tournaments as owners of Parked Pro. One of these guys even has his own exclusive disc golf team. Let's welcome Matt Lisac and Andre Lodder to the show.
We can bring one of them in.
Hey, Andre, how you doing? We've got one of you,
I'm doing really well. It's I'm not gonna lie, the timing of it, I was watching it on the thing, the 20 seconds really throws you off. It's like I'm listening there, and then all of a sudden you guys are talking to me here. But
well, you can tell us because you were really participating in it. How far along were we? Were we about 20 seconds? Was that about the right timing?
I had to shut it off because I was like, which one do I listen to?
We say 20 seconds, but yeah, sometimes it seems like 30 seconds. Like it tends to get longer the episode the more through the episode we go.
Oh, I bet. Matt is actually on the road. He's on the road. He's stopping at Salmon Arm. He said he was going to be like pretty much there right at 7:30 on the dot. So he'll probably join up at any minute now, I think. So
sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, that's all right. Well, why don't we start and just tell us, you're out in Invermere BC, right out in that Fairmont area?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And how are things going out there right now? You guys getting some great weather? What's it like?
It's been hit and miss. It's actually really funny. We have our first real storm coming through, like literally right now over top of our head. So we'll see if and how the internet does. But but weather has been kind of spotty, to be honest. It was really good early spring, and we were able to get a lot of work done on the courses late out here, and really good for playing. And then it kind of got a little dicey there for a little while, but things are starting to warm up. So
have you looked at the forecast? You know what the weather's going to be like for the weekend?
I just usually I expect rain in that area. So it's looking okay, actually. I think we might get a little bit on Sunday, but we're kind of in a little bit of a rain sandwich. So
there you go. Now I've been out to Fairmont. My parents had a timeshare out there. I've been in that area a few times, been out to Invermere, going to Panorama, that kind of thing. Yeah. But I haven't been out there to play disc golf. The furthest I've got is out to Nipika over in the Radium area. So what kind of courses, what are the courses like in your immediate area there?
They're fantastic. They're really good. We actually, Jesse was, you guys know from our podcast, he's had a hand in designing a lot of the courses out here. Nipika was one of his. He co-designed that with Casey and Matt Reardon. And then Raven's Nest was the big one that he designed. Him and Aiden Pallison, they both designed that one. And it's not just designing out here. Our club is very small, so if you're a designer, you're the head builder as well. And I could speak from experience because the other course that we have here, Radium, which is the one we talk about on our podcast quite a bit.
Right.
That one is it was kind of passed off to me, I guess I'll say. It was initially brought forth by Jesse and another local who didn't really play a lot of disc golf beforehand, but just was really keen on getting something in. Got the wheels started on that one, and then I kind of took over. And it's one thing to have these visions of these cool holes, and then you walk the properties and you people look at you like, you think a hole is going to go here, and you're like, one day a hole will go here. And that's that's just kind of the way that it is in this valley, because there's a lot of underbrush and vegetation and whatnot. It's it's called wetlands for a reason, so the Columbia wetlands. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Now, are they 18 hole courses? Are they 9, or is there a mix?
Everything we have here is 18. The Radium one is actually it's 9 baskets right now, and the other 9 10 for a practice basket. I think they arrived this week, so we can hopefully put them in about 3 weeks time. So
nice.
Yeah,
okay.
So 18 holes and all really challenging stuff. We really like to punish our players out here. If you think like Nipika, if you play Nipika's hard. It's a tough track. And Raven's Nest is also no slouch.
Well, It was
Yeah.
amazing looking at that course. So if you're saying they're comparable, I know one of my discs actually at Nipica did go down to the river. I ended
Oh
up
yeah, I
hyzering out
bet.
a little early, and when you're off track, you're really off track at that course.
Yeah, I'd say Nipica's a touch on the harder side, and Raven's Nest, but Raven's Nest is just, it's a hike. It's like you're up, you're down. It's a real, yeah. You get your workout, you get your steps in, and you get your workout, especially if you're off the fairway. So
There you
Awesome.
go.
yeah.
Okay, well, we can't let Andre hog the spotlight here.
No,
We
not at
finally
all.
have Matt. Let's bring Matt in.
Hey, Matt. Welcome.
Hey guys,
How are you
do I
doing?
have audio?
Oh yeah,
Yep,
we can
we
hear
can
you loud
hear
and
you.
clear.
Good. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Awesome.
So we hear that you're are you on your way out to BC there? You're out in Salmon Arm?
I am in Salmon Arm. I was going to say parts unknown, but I guess we spoiled it. So yeah, I'm on the way.
It's one of those things that's never too good to let everybody know where you are. You want to have a little bit of a surprise.
Oh man, it's you don't understand the fans that we have. It's they're crazy. We get swarmed. It's like we're bigger than the Beatles right now.
Wow. Is it also like Michael Jackson or Elvis there where people are fainting when they see you, that kind of thing?
Mostly just Andre. They faint when they smell me, but they do faint when they see Andre. So
Well, we were just catching up there a bit with Andre, learning a little bit about the courses out in Invermere. But I think you guys have both watched our show a couple times here. And, we like to have with our brand new guests, we want to get an origin story out of you guys. We want to find out how the two of you got into disc golf, but we don't just want to ask you, give you some time to think. And I've been putting one together for you guys. It's my first time doing a two-hander origin story. So I've got it set. It's like a movie. Let's see if I got close to what really happened with you guys. So Matt, maybe you got into disc golf first. You purchased new shiny discs and started playing tournaments, and you even won a few of them. Being from Alberta, you were a bit of a cowboy. You made friends, including with a guy named Jesse. He gave you one of his discs and he even wrote his name on the bottom for you. You were so proud to have that disc. But then COVID came around and the disc golf boom showed up. You met Andre, and Andre, being from BC, you weren't too sure about him. You thought maybe he was a bit of a space cadet for all you knew. Tensions grew high when you picked up one of his discs on the course. It was a buzz, and you saw a freshly inked name on the bottom of the disc. It was JESSE. You thought this friendship would never work, but as days and adventures passed, you became great pals. Eventually, you were able to look at each other and say, "You got a friend in me." Now, maybe that's not how you guys got into disc golf, but go ahead, Matt, starting with you. How did you get in?
I don't know. I think the Toy Story is pretty close. It's right there for sure. I was an ultimate player before. Well, first I was throwing a lot of frisbee around as a kid kind of player. Loved doing that. Me and the old man would go out in the backyard and toss frisbees, and he made sure we only played on windy days because that's when it's fun to throw a frisbee. So if the disc wasn't knuckling up and down, then we're not having fun playing catch. So that was how I grew up. And then I found out about ultimate frisbee, which was that plus 6 other people running around in a field, and I did that for a bunch of years and had a great time. And then I started to get some of the injuries started piling up. I partially tore an LCL and a meniscus, and I had a couple of concussions. And so I was kind of sadly starting to wind down the ultimate career. And then a couple of my friends, Jeremy Gauthier and our other friend, Rich Power, had told me, we've been playing this disc golf thing for like 7 years. I guess it never occurred to us to invite you, but do you think that's something that you would enjoy? And I said, you mean all of the frisbee throwing and none of the running around and getting injured part? Yeah, I think I would enjoy that a lot. So that was like 2016, 17 maybe. And just immediately fell in love with it. All of the joy of seeing the disc fly through the air and none of the pain. And so I played in mostly with those two guys for a bunch of years, and then for a couple of years, and then I ran into locals, Edmonton locals, Tim and Jerry, Tim Quakenbush, and I don't actually know Jerry's last name, but they used to go up and down Rundle all the time together. And so I was just out playing a solo round and ran into them. And Tim taught me some cool throws that I'd never tried before. And then he said, there's a league. You should join a league. And I was like, there's a league for this? You got to be kidding me. That's amazing. And then so I started to show up more often doing that. And then I met Wally Ovali, and he told me that there was a tournament coming up called the Night Owl. And I said, there's tournaments of this stuff? That sounds amazing. And so I played the Night Owl, and I convinced both of my friends to try it out, because they didn't even keep score before I started playing with them.
Wow.
What's the point of, like, throwing a frisbee is great, but keeping score is, like, how are we going to know who wins? How are we going to know if we're getting better? That kind of thing. So I kind of dragged them along, and I sort of regret it, because then Jeremy ended up becoming really, really good at it, because we're both very competitive. So it was just a nonstop process over a few years of trying to one up each other. And unfortunately, he was always on the better end of that. So, fell in love with the game, and that's basically it. And then the video stuff seemed interesting, because I wasn't getting any better. So maybe that's a good time for Andre to
we'll get into that too, for sure. And Andre, how about yourself? How did you get into disc golf?
I also came from an ultimate background, and it was actually funny when you were first describing the origin story. I was like, he's just describing how it actually happened, pretty much. It actually, I got into disc golf because I played ultimate, not like competitively. I was more like your C. I guess the equivalent of a C tier tournament player, the fun leagues, the ones where you dress up and where you can, like, not every point, but there's a few points where you can have everyone on the field has to have a beer in their hand and you have to play. I was catching frisbees behind my back and always trying to trick shots in game and stuff. So I was that player, the one that just wanted to go out and have fun. But I loved it, and it's actually where I met my wife. So that's we were kind of, discs have always been a part of my life since high school. So, and then it was in 2019, the summer of 2019, my wife and I, we moved to Golden, BC, and it was a small town. It's only about an hour and a half north of here, and they didn't have ultimate, and we tried starting an ultimate scene there, and it was just kind of like, it ended up just being me and my wife just throwing a disc around. And I was like, man, I've heard about this disc golf thing. They just got a new disc golf course, and I was like, I think I know a guy that used to ask me if I wanted to go play, and I know he lives here. Maybe I'll ask him if he's got any extra discs, and I'll try this thing out. So he lent me 3 discs or 2 discs to start, and and I just, I was hooked. I was because my wife was working there, I was kind of trying to start my own media business, and so I ended up with a lot of free time, because when you're starting a business, you don't get a lot of clients right off the hop, and that's just kind of how it goes. Yeah. And so I was playing maybe 3 times a week for the first couple months of playing, and I was immediately hooked. So that's how I got into it, and then it just kind of went on from there, and it snowballed from there, and moved down to Invermere, and it's actually really funny. I got a job at where I work now as a collective carpentry. It's a carpentry business, and
right.
Sorry, my daughter's just walking by.
Have a guest appearance here?
Yeah, we might actually. She really wants to come by. Juniper, do you want to say hi?
Yeah, bring her on.
Yeah. Hey,
hi,
how's it going?
Juniper. And look what she's got in her hand. What's that in your hand? You tell everyone. What's this? What
do you got?
What's that?
Hey, that's a putter that I know very well. I throw that putter.
Yeah. You gonna say hi? You gonna say hi to everyone?
Hi.
Very quietly.
Welcome, Juniper.
And so it's kind of funny. I joined up with this company, and one of the first guys that I met, like on the first day, he's like, "Do you play disc golf?" And I was like, "Actually, yeah, I do, as of like a few months ago." And then it just kind of went from there, and it turns out he was one of only like 3 disc golfers in Invermere at the time, so Jesse being one of them. And and then COVID hit, and it was like, we have a little tree course here that we were playing on quite a bit, and then COVID hit and we were off for a month, and there was, by this time we had 4 people working at our company that we got into disc golf. And so it was like we were off for a month, and it was like, when's the tea time tomorrow? And it was like 1 o'clock, and same tea time. So it was just ended up being, we played a lot of disc golf for that month, and I think that's really where it kind of set in that this is really taking over as my number 1 sport. So
Nice.
that's kind of how it all went down.
That's
well,
awesome.
I think your ultimate story there kind of rings true, because Mark Thompson, that we've had on the podcast before, he mentioned that he played Ultimate, and I think at one point he said that his team was sponsored by Fireball, and they had Fireball in like water pistols that they used to shoot at the crowd. And like, that was, so I think you're right on his wavelength in that scenario. Totally. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think
which seems a bit more like my way of playing Ultimate. I think I don't like Matt's injuries and that sort of way. Yeah.
Well, don't get me wrong, I still got injured.
Okay.
I can see how that would lead. Yeah, if you're playing a game with a beer in your hand, I guess injuries are kind of part and parcel.
Every once in a while, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if I had to choose between a concussion or a headache from too much Fireball, I really know which one I would choose.
Yes.
So, similar in the fact, guys, is that we started out as amateur disc golfers in the last few years. And just like everyone else, you throw that disc, you see that nice S curve, and then you're hooked, and all you want to do is throw discs. And then you just snowball that easily into starting a podcast and do 32 episodes. And with you guys, you've done a whole bunch of things as well like that we want to get into. And one of the first ones is the Canadian Disc Golf Tour, one of the most amazing things. We like to talk about it all the time. And we're so excited that you guys just recently announced that it is happening again this year. So let's get into that and tell us a little bit about how it started and when did it actually, like, I know it was last year, but when did it really start? How long has this thing been in the making?
I think we'll start off by just talking about how Park Pro started, because that's really kind of where the conversation, Matt and I met because we were both love disc golf, obviously. But I started Park Pro about a year before we decided we were going to do a Canadian Disc Golf Tour. Okay. And it's, or maybe even longer than that, because it started off doing just photos, and then I was like, I don't want to do coverage. And then I was like, I'll try to do coverage. And my first tournament was the Tournament Capital Open in 2022 that I did coverage for, and that was just me and I had a couple other guys. One guy that was just kind of like, let's just see how the third camera works, and then another guy that I paid to be a catch cam.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me about, I'd say, 4 months to edit, and it was a lot of work. And it was like right around when she was she was being born. And then so like it was kind of in that fall, I was like, ooh, I don't know, this is a lot. And it was the fall, because I think I met Matt at Ravens Nest tournament at that point, and we were actually at Jesse's just putting players packs together, and he's like, oh yeah, you do Park Pro, you should, I do some media too. And he showed me his stuff, or told me to check it out, and kind of tongue in cheek was like, oh, we should like, get together and like, do this thing together, because it's a lot of work. And so I looked at his stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, he is, like, he's pretty good at this. Because like there's people that do it and want to do it, and then there's people that really want to do it and do it well. And like right off the hop, I was like, well, I could tell Matt's one of those guys that wants to do this the right way. And so then I reached out to him. I was like, are you serious about this? Because like we can do this. And so it went from me being like, I don't think this is going to work, to me being like, there's another person just as passionate and so happy about doing this at the same level as me, and I think we can make it work. So we met up, and we had chatted about okay, let's do this. How does it work? Had some brainstorming sessions, and it was like, well, let's, like, how many tournaments do we want to do a year? And we're like, well, let's shoot for like 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there. And then Matt's like, if we want to do this and we want to do it, not just in Western Canada, like let's just make it the Canadian Disc Golf Tour. And that's kind of just how it started. So it was the September before the first year was when it was first mentioned that we should do it. So
wow. And talk about taking on a big thing, not just, it took me 4 months here to edit this tournament Capital Open, but sure, let's look and do a tournament tour that's going to take up 8 different tournaments. That should work out okay, hey?
Well, yeah, and like part of that first winter was really trying to figure out how we can, expedite things and make things fast. And I was looking into like graphics packages, because that cutting and stuff is not the worst. It's the graphics at the time. It was because you have to change. At that time, we had to change every single number manually. So every time a score changed, you have to go and change it. So like that's the one thing we figured out. So that like we took probably 3 months and just kind of expedited a lot of our processes, and all by ourselves. We didn't really ask anyone how they did it or anything like that. So I'm pretty proud of what we were able to accomplish. And yeah, but I can let Matt take over. I'm hogging the mic.
No, that's great, and you totally nailed it, minus a few things. So for our local Edmonton listeners, some of them saw it, but I put out a couple of things under the name Sometimes Disc Golf, and so if you look on YouTube, you can still find a Rundle one disc challenge with. It was Jeremy Gauthier, Chad Gamelin, Tyler Hohalter, and I think David Hohalter. Wow. And then there's also a Wetaskiwin Mystery Disc round, which was Jeremy and the 3 Hohalters. So, but yeah, like Andre mentioned, it was I don't know how to do any of this stuff. I am not a graphically inclined person. I am trained in writing, and I know some things about music production, but I don't know anything about any of this. I had a license for Photoshop, the basic Photoshop, whatever the cheap version of that is, and I just figured, well, you might as well just make an image of a scoreboard and then copy and paste that and then change one of the numbers, and that's how you do score overlays. And so my attempt at it was like the most ham-fisted version of like video production you could ever imagine, but I spent a long time on it trying to make it as good as possible. And then I met Andre, and I found out that there are people like him that are professionals at graphic design. So Andre can, anything that looks good with our channel, with the branding, with the socials, any of that, that's Andre. I don't have an eye for it. It's sometimes you'll see like there might be a YouTube thumbnail that comes out, and you might be like, well, this one looks weird and different from all the rest of them. That's one of mine, but all of the rest of them, all of the good looking ones are Andre. So so it was also just a relief to know that there was people like Andre out there that knew how to do things and make them look good. So and I had seen his coverage of TCO in 2022, and I was like, oh hell yeah, this is like the starting point of what it needs to look like. And I think if the two of us do this together, we can make it even better on every level. So yeah, so I was pretty excited. He says tongue in cheek, mentioned that we should work together, but I was dead serious when I
from the start.
Yeah, I was like, this is exactly perfect. We've got we've got what's called complementary skills, and that's one of the most important things in a partnership. Hopefully the two of you also, I mean, you have complementary facial hair, which is a very important first step, and maybe Andre and I need to work on that. But yeah, it was just discovering that the sum of the parts could be greater than the whole if we work together on this thing. So and yeah, we just realized that there wasn't a professional tour in Canada, and that there should be, and that there would be. And if you look around and you feel like something's missing where you are, then that means it's your job to build it. So we just decided, if there's a thing that we feel like is missing in Canada and nobody seems to be doing it, then it's our job to build it. So that's what we did. And we reached out to all of our favorite tournaments, and we pitched them this idea, like, hey, let's make a professional Canadian tour, expecting one or two of them to say, you're crazy, but okay, let's do it. And instead, everybody was thrilled with the idea, and they're like, yeah, people have been talking about this, but just nobody's taken the mantle and run with it. And so if you guys want to do that, then we're all in. So we got so much unbelievable support from all of the tournament directors all over the country saying, yeah, this is the thing. It's going to be a thing. We want to be a part of it. And what can we do to help? And so that was maybe the biggest surprise and best part of that whole journey in the first year was just people understanding the vision and being on board with it from the get-go.
So had you guys like run tournaments or like have you run anything on this kind of scale? Have you organized anything like this before?
Andre has run a mini tour in the valley there called the Rusty Rating Series. So he's directed a bunch of tournaments and done a point series before locally. I assistant TD'd one tournament one time.
Yeah, it's funny that's I think I started those just the year before the Canadian Disc Golf Tour. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
are they still going, or is that something that's still happening, or
yeah, it's one of those things. It's right out of spring. You know, it's there's not a lot of opportunities in the East Kootenays here for people to play disc golf. So or play in tournaments. So it's just kind of a way to do one day tournaments, low commitment, low cost. So basically, you know, you pay your $30 and you get a disc, and $5 goes to the series, and then you can win gift certificates to Limber. So, Limber's supported us right from the get go, and it's super fun. But yeah, it's one of those things where I didn't run those until the year, but after I started Park Pro is when I started. I was like, you know what, I want to run tournaments too. So.
You want to do it all.
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
Now, when you guys got started and you said, okay, we're going to reach out to these tournaments, reach out to our favorite tournaments, as you said, Matt, and all of a sudden 8 of these tournaments say yes, and you've got one in Ontario, you've got one in Manitoba. What happened then? Did you guys just look at each other and go, what do we do now? Like, you've got this, now you said, this is what we want, and now you have it. So then what happened?
It came really naturally, actually. It's one of those things. It's like Matt wasn't lying when he said our skills really complemented each other. It was like we created spreadsheets, we looked at everything, and we were kind of like, we'd had lots of calls. I think we had a weekly call for the first if not more than like 2 or 3 weeks sometimes, just to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row. And it was just everything just seemed so natural. It's like, okay, these tournaments doing, what's the next step? Okay, let's do it. What do we have to do? Okay, camera work. We got our cameras. We got to figure out cameras. How are we going to make these work and kind of thing. And also just not just that, but just how do we had brainstorming sessions on how do we make the camera, like what kind of camera angles do we want? How do we want all that to work? Because like we mentioned, both of us have only really filmed one tournament, and going from that to being like, okay, well, let's just use those single tournaments and just kind of do it the way that we want. But I think the one thing that stuck through it all and kind of we wanted to maintain is that we wanted to prove that we're not a second-rate country when it comes to disc golf. We have amazing courses, great players, and we wanted our coverage to reflect that. And that was kind of always our overreaching goal, is that we wanted to showcase Canadian disc golf to the best of our ability. So, and as long as you kept that in the top of mind, then I think the rest just kind of fell in place. So.
Well, and we can agree with exactly what you're saying, because you did just that last year. Because as those videos started rolling out with TCO starting and Foxwood and them coming out, I was watching every one of them, and it looked like you guys had been doing this forever. Like, the production quality is fantastic. It's, you're getting those shots, you're catching it. So not a lot of people could probably say that they want to do a project like that, but it doesn't come out on the first try. But you guys did, right from the start to the end. Every one of those just got better and better. So thank you from all the Canadian disc golfers out there for putting that out, because it's just brought that much more attention to Canadian disc golf. And that's exactly the same thing we're trying to do with the podcast, is that we've got that great product. Let's focus on these Canadians and get that attention. But yeah, great job on hitting the nail right on the head.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. That means a lot. And we are definitely big fans of your podcast, because you guys certainly put in the effort. Same kind of thing. It's like, we're going to start at the base level where we want to be, and you guys did that from the get-go. So you guys totally understand what we're going for, which is just like, hey, we're going to start at the level that we would want to watch, like, and then you learn along the way. So we got, it was also a bunch of luck on the way too. Like, we got rained on here at TCO a couple of weeks ago. We didn't have a weatherproofing system for all of last year. And we were just hoping that it wouldn't rain at any of the tournaments we filmed. And it never rained more than just like spitting a few droplets the entire year. Like things like that, I mean, if it had come down a little bit heavier on one of the days at one of the tournaments we filmed for 20 minutes, we just might not have had coverage for that tournament. Wow. So there's a lot of things that have to go the right way. But also, like, Andre he's a trained photojournalist. And so like having a base amount of knowledge around, photo and videography and stuff like that really does go a long way. Like we're amateurs at being a video production company, but like without having a bunch of technical know-how and experience from Andre, it would be a lot harder journey. So it's kind of a little of both, a little bit of gumption and a little bit of like Andre has a good idea of what he's doing with cameras.
And like you mentioned about complimenting each other, it's good that you, Matt, can recognize that Andre knows what he's talking about when he's talking about this, so you can bow to him and say, okay, yeah, I'll follow your lead, you know what you're talking about, it sounds good to me, and we'll roll with that. And then probably vice versa as well, that you have those complementary, you're not butting heads, you're not one person thinking that somebody knows how to do it and the other person's always wrong. So it definitely reflects in everything that you've done.
Yeah, it's the best partnerships are when, two people have strengths, but you can also, like, we have debates about how something should be, like what the presentation should be like, how we shoot it, how we edit it, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And by just like openly butting heads and arguing about stuff, we find that we usually come to a satisfying conclusion and the best answer. So we've definitely been lucky in that front too, that we can have those creative arguments that lead to a better place. So
great.
Has there been anything that maybe you had to, or either one of you, has there been something that maybe you didn't feel was right, but you kind of let it go anyway?
Ooh, we're not question. Speaking of our own experiences here at all, are we?
Exactly.
It's funny because like that, I think that's where the communication is so important on all ends. And it's less of like, it's not your idea versus my idea. It's like, let's bring these ideas up, let's talk about it, let's work through it. And I think Matt and I both understand that, in order to get to the right decision, we have to talk about it. And it's not, as long as both parties and all parties, if you're more than just two people, if as long as all parties come into it with an open mind and be like, how does that work? And being very visual people, obviously, it's like you can, like, this is just the way my head works. If Matt has an idea, I literally picture it in my head as if it's like something that we've already covered last year, and like, I don't know if that's going to work, and this is why. And then kind of you work through all those things, and as long as you have an open mind, and you can, when you're bringing a counter argument to thumbs up apparently, when you're bringing a counter argument, as long as you can, you can say why, and it's not just a personal opinion. I think, in any business partnership, that's just, the best way to do it. And it's funny, actually, you guys, Matt's gushing over my talents with a video, with a camera in my hands, but Matt's really, like, he comes from a real savvy business background. So, a lot of the business stuff and logistics and stuff like that, it's, it's still a conversation that we both have, and, very open. But, a lot of the times I defer to his expertise because he's got way more experience in that field than I do. So, when you're doing something like this, you have a company like this and a tour like this, it goes beyond just the filming. And so to be able to have someone that, even just knows basic spreadsheet skills, like that's so key.
I tell everybody, man, like, if you can learn one skill, whether you're in school or out of school, Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets or whatever it is, it's useful and all. It's like the greatest computer program ever written.
It's not going away. It's been around forever, and it will be, I think, as we go. But
No,
hey,
it's
if
the
I can
best.
bring us back to the Canadian Disc Golf Tour. So last year when you guys had done the tour, you did all 3 rounds of the MPO side, and then you would do the final round of the FPO. Now, looking at the site, and I love the way it's been updated, it looks like we got 8 tournaments on the schedule for this year that will be recorded. And is the plan the same, or are you guys going to take a bigger bite this year?
We might take a smaller bite, to be totally honest.
Okay.
Getting coverage out in a timely fashion is one of our goals for this year. We understand that people would rather watch a more recent tournament than an older tournament. And the other part of it is we spent all of last year figuring out where the viability point financially was for this kind of operation and trying to get a sense of it, because it's people were taking a chance on us last year, so we ended up doing a lot of it on our own dime, essentially, to figure it out, to find it out. And so we ended up kind of figuring out a financial model that works for us, because Andre's got a beautiful Juniper and a wife,
Mm-hmm.
and we both have to work, and this is, at the end of the day, like, this is a humongous commitment for us. And so we kind of figured out a financial model that made sense, and we communicated that with really super openly with all of the tournaments at the end of the season. And we told them before the season, before they all agreed to work with us, like, we'll just open up our books entirely and let you know, like, this is how much it costs to do all this stuff, and here's how we can work together to make this thing viable for us and the tournaments. And filming FPO is another whole commitment. Like, it adds 25% to the workload for that tournament. If we do one round, it doubles the workload for the tournament if we do all of the rounds of FPO. And that's also like paying a camera operator as well, which is even more. So we presented all the tournaments with an option. We're like, hey, this is what it's going to take for us to work together on this to cover the MPO, and this is what it's going to take to do this with one round of FPO or all 3 rounds of FPO. And do you think this is viable? And so far, it's not super viable for a lot of the tournaments. And I think we'll probably try and get some more FPO coverage anyway. Like, the FPO coverage that we got last year was really, we hadn't planned on it at all, to be totally honest. It was TCO last year. Andre woke up and we were both sitting there on our computers. He's like, I could just run out with a camera and we could get single camera coverage of the final round. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And so he did that, and he got single camera coverage of the TCO FPO last year, and it was awesome. And he came back and he's like, you got to check out this Sophia Donica. She is the future of disc golf in Canada. And so we plugged in the footage and we watched her and Julie Mowens and Gabby and Laura Mason. We were like, oh man, this is really good. Like, we got to get more of these women on coverage, because it's the quality is so high, but it's also like the FPO, the mood in an FPO card is the best. Mm-hmm. It's like all the MPO cards we cover are just grouchy, nervous, sour grapes every missed putt. It's awful.
Not everyone.
Not everyone.
But a lot of them are.
Some of them are super fun. Yeah. So we were like, okay, well, I guess if the timing works, because the problem is that not every tournament is big enough that they can run FPO and then an entire course worth of MPO or MPO plus MP40 to make that actually work, where we can get all the way around the course with the FPO and then get back to the T-pad and get the MPO. So just logistically, it doesn't work unless the tournament directors are asking the FPO to go out at absurd early hours a lot of the time. So that's the other problem, is it's just a lot of times in Canadian tournaments, they're on the course at the same time as the MPO lead card is on the course. So we're working on it, and we would love nothing more than to film a ton of FPO coverage in Canada, because it's the best. The personalities are the best. They're like, I think we've seen on tour, they are like far and away our best athletes. No disrespect to obviously Thomas Gilbert and Max Vergitnig and Casey, who spent some time on the tour, but like our FPO players are relevant at a global level, and we need to be documenting that because it's super cool. So we want to get as much as we can, and it's just getting there in a stable way where we're not blowing our brains out in terms of like time and money involved to make it happen, right? So
gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, and we agree with you wholeheartedly. Daryl and I love watching Canadian FPO. We've had FPO and MPO players on the podcast, but when we talk to Gabby, when we talk to Julie, to Terry, they all bring such an energy, and you want to play on those cards with those players. Like if you could be a fifth person on that FPO card, I'd be on it in a minute to play with them, because it just seems like it's a great time. There's funny things and funny moments, and you guys have captured a lot of them throughout the last year there on the MPO card as well. But now FPO is where it's at, and that's what I say. So
you actually bring up a good point, because like if you look back at those funny videos that Matt put together, think about how the ratio of MPO coverage that we had to FPO coverage, and then think about the ratio of how many ladies were on the funny moments side. That's just a taste of, that's just what the ladies cards are like. They're fun. It's super awesome. So
yeah, they get the spirit of the game, I think, better than anybody usually.
Definitely.
And even from a like I don't want to say physical standpoint, but like a gameplay, I'm not using the right terminology there, but like it's more closely related to what the lines, the ability, that's the word I was looking for. It's so much more relatable for amateurs to watch that. It's all nice to watch MPOs throw these big hyzer lines and throw the distance and all that, but we're never going to be competing with that. We're never going to be throwing those type of shots. So it's a lot more relatable to be able to watch those FPOs, and if you've got the great attitude and the fun and the camaraderie and everything like that goes along with it, it just makes it for a way better coverage to watch. Yeah.
We always say it's to watch the MPO is great for entertainment, and then the FPO is great to say maybe one day I can get to that, because it's at least a little bit closer, still far, but a little bit closer to where we're trying to get to. Now, guys, if I can ask too, is you've got these big 8 events, and there's a couple new tournaments on there. Which one are you most excited to go out to film this year and to be part of? Is there one that's kind of top of your list? I know you love them all. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but is there one that's kind of you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I'll start. There's two of them that are kind of tied. The Yukon is going to be awesome. It's just one of those things where I'm so excited to go to the Yukon, because it's a place that I've never been. And not just for the disc golf. I think it's just, fantastic, on cameras in general. It's just a great place. And
we're gonna burn our cameras out up there, I think.
yeah. Exactly.
That drone is going to be working overtime.
Yeah. And then the other one is this mini open, and maybe again, I haven't played out in PEI, so I'm looking very forward to going out there and playing those courses as well. So I'm looking at how we can potentially spend a little bit more time out there, and maybe even convince the wife to come out. So
nice.
We'll see.
How about you, Matt?
Yeah, I'm not even going to add to that, because that's exactly my answers too. I have been out to PEI, and I can assure you it is magical. It is it's like Hobbiton. It's like a little fantasy world, and I got to go out there for nationals in 2018, and then again in 2022, I think it was, and I just had some of my best memories ever of any vacation period out there. So and yeah, I have never been to the Yukon, and absolutely can't wait to go up there, and I'm super excited about what they're building up there, because I think that could be like the staple summer solstice event. This is like the adventure you want to go on in the summer. Make sure you get up and do this thing. So
yeah. Well, I can say, guys, before I started disc golfing, my work took me up to Whitehorse and up to Dawson as well, and it was in the summer during that Raptors run for their championship, and it was sunny and beautiful, and you went to bed at whatever time you wanted and the sun was up, and then you got right back up and the sun was still up. It was an amazing time. So you guys are going to have a lot of fun, especially because you get all of this great environment and you get disc golf. What else could you ask for?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, and Ryan, Ryan's known for doing a lot of really good things up there, and he's pulling out all the stops for bringing us up there, and not making this more than just a one event thing. Like, it's a whole week of disc golf. It's to celebrate disc golf, and um, I think it's going to have an impact even outside the disc golf world. I think, like, the whole city is just gonna, they're gonna disc golf will be the focus of the whole city for a whole week. And I think that is that alone, like, who's to say that in 10 years we don't see some fantastic players coming out of the Yukon because of this event. So very excited about that.
And I would say to all of our listeners too, is that start looking at your flights to Whitehorse. There might be a way you can still squeeze in because it's coming up soon. It's called LTL, or Larger Than Life, is what the event is. So keep an eye on that, because I know it is far way to go, and that there is still room as a result that you can get into that tournament if you want to play. So check it out.
I think it's from like Edmonton. It's cheaper to fly to the Yukon for that than it is to fly to Winnipeg, for example. Like, it's not as prohibitively expensive as you would think. So,
and it sounds much better to say going to Whitehorse than going to Winnipeg. Although Brian Freese, if you're listening, Winnipeg's still great, but
we're going to Winnipeg the week after. So
yes,
yeah.
There you go.
And also you should come to Winnipeg because they have some absolute hidden gems out there. Like, we had such a good time in Winnipeg. I'm not even kidding. It was just like, it was nonstop fun the entire time out there. So that's one of those ones that people don't travel to as much as they should is Manitoba Provincials, because the people are amazing, the courses are amazing, and Winnipeg's a cool place.
Yeah, perfect.
And this is kind of alludes to the whole aspect of the Canadian Disc Golf Tours. It's highlighting and showcasing the whole of Canada. It's not always about Toronto and Vancouver.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
definitely. Now, guys, so this year, what's a little bit different from last year is that every single A tier in Canada is going to give people points, and every single B tier in Canada is going to give people points. And that's made for a really exciting leaderboard so far. And I know you've just recently updated it, so I wanted to let everyone know what's going on. Up at the top of the MPO leaderboard right now with 250 points, drum roll, out of Lethbridge, Alberta, is Mr. Noah Higgins. So talk about an amazing story. Noah's had, unfortunately some medical things happen this year, but like, to come back and to be on top this early in it, that's amazing. We're excited to see that.
Yeah, hey, it's awesome. It's always so fun to watch Noah play. He's one of my favorite players to have on lead card and whatnot, because he's, when you, no offense to Noah, when you look at him, you don't think, strong, powerful,
dominant athlete.
When he's standing next to Casey and Thomas, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just, and what he's able to do with a disc is amazing. He's one of the best putters in Canada, and so every time he's playing, it's fantastic to watch. And I think it goes to show just how strong a start he's had to the season, is that he's taken a couple of B tiers down, which will count towards his standings. What I'm really interested in seeing is how this progresses through the year, because it's not just like every single B tier will count. If you play 16 B tiers, you're not going to get points for all those. It caps at 8.
Okay.
And it's not your first 8, it's your best 8. So, Noah, he's fortunate to have, or not fortunate, but he's skilled enough to have won, I think two or three B tiers already, and placed well at other ones, and then playing in actually I don't know if he's played in any A tiers yet, but him playing so well this early is just, it's awesome to see. And he could cap out earlier than other people, so I think that's one of the interesting dynamics that we're going to see going as the year progresses. So
Perfect.
Yeah, I got to play with Noah because when I started, I was in like MA2 and then MA1, and that was Noah when he was 14, and I got to beat him one time.
One time.
And I think I'm pretty sure I got to beat him one time, and
Noah's gonna go.
That's
through
what
his
you've been
stats
telling
after we move
everybody.
on.
yeah, that's right. I'm gonna probably go through this afterward to double check that, but he was, and we've got a lot more of those players now, these athletes that are starting the sport at 14, 15 or earlier, and we're seeing that super fast progression. But that was Noah. He was the guy in Alberta and even a good chunk of Western Canada, like when he was a teenager, he was like starting to take wins over the most experienced pros. And he is, like Andre said, he is just the ultimate pleasure to have on a card when you're playing and also when you're filming. He's got a great mind for the sport, and he's got a great temperament as an athlete, which is, I think, one of the biggest. I mean, he's got all the physical tools. He can throw a disc a mile, and he puts in the work on the practice green. But at the end of the day, like, what we've found with a lot of these really high level tournaments and high level competitions is it is entirely mental. All of these players can make those putts from 35, 40 feet. They can all do that. Put them out in the backyard in a practice basket, and that's a skill they all have. They can all throw a disc 400 feet to, circle one. But it's the mentality at the end of the day is what ends up separating them, especially when you get into the final rounds of these tournaments. And he has such a mature mental game, and has since he was a junior eligible player. And so it's awesome to see that really coming to fruition over time. So and he's just like, he doesn't take it too seriously. He takes it extremely seriously as a craft, but he doesn't take the situation and himself overly seriously. So it's he's got a perfect combination of skills, I think, and it's a joy to see him do it out there.
Yeah. Well, and Matt, you saying you beat Noah at one point is probably the equivalent of me saying, I saw Nickelback open for Everclear back in the day, right? That kind of thing.
Exactly.
They were always going to go to superstardom, but on their way up, you had a chance, right?
Yeah.
So,
But then you realize you're like, oh, maybe I had a few too many drinks and I didn't actually see them.
Yes, that's true too. I saw something. I don't know what it was. So to finish off the top three here, Thomas Gilbert sitting in second with 245 points, so 5 points behind. And then Marty Hendel, who we've had on the show, is at 240 in third. So that's a great top three to start. And if we flip over to the FPO side, our own, Daryl, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to sing. We're not going to start the music video yet. But our own Heiserbaum Hong, Terry Hong, is sitting in first place with 195. Christy Lee and Rebecca Dawn tied for second with 185. And watching Rebecca Dawn, for example, and what she's been doing at such a young age and doing stuff down in the States and winning, that's another up and comer. Like we were talking about before, there's so much good FPO talent on the way.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, just on Terry, like she was hovering around that first place all year last year. She didn't win a single one of our events, which is kind of crazy. It just means that she came out and she performed well enough at all of them to be in the running. And if you haven't seen the playoff that we had at Gold Eagle Open, that was to win last year. And unfortunately, she didn't get it to go. But, this year she's looking pretty good. And she's, as long as she keeps up that good play and can maintain that throughout the year, I think she'll do really well again. So.
It'll be perfect.
She's a gamer. She's hard on herself, but she's a gamer. She can chuck a disc. She's an athlete.
And she's got so much, she may be hard on herself, but the confidence she has, like when she fires some of those putts, there's no fear in her, right? Like she's going for it and she'll deal with the result. It's either in or she'll putt the next one and she doesn't worry about it.
Yeah. And anybody that's had a chance to play around with Terry Hong, she's also a great card mate to have on. It's always nice when the talented athletes are also fun to play disc golf with, and that's true for the majority of these top players that we're talking about.
Yes. So we're excited with that, Daryl. You've got something there, I think.
I was just gonna bring it back to something that you mentioned earlier. about the editing and the timeline for getting coverage out, and I don't want to put you on the spot for it. But you did mention that one of the goals for this year was to try and get the coverage out a little bit sooner than it went out last year. Is that something that you're like? Do you have a timeline in your mind? I mean, like I said, I don't want to pin you down to a certain
I'll pull the
date.
curtains back a little bit, and we can kind of go back to a little bit of our like behind the scenes discussions. Like, you know, we talked about some like the discussions that you need to have as a company, and one of the things that we looked at last year, and we're like, what can we do to get this out faster? You know, that was our main point that, you know, people, you know, complained about, and not complained. No one really complained about it, but it's one of the things we're aware of that needs to happen. And so we implemented a few different things to help us expedite the process. And, you know, but I, you know, still didn't come with a lot of confidence, and we weren't sure how it was going to go. And so one of the things that we had talked to tournaments about beforehand was about maybe doing some highlights, releasing a highlights package just to sort of, you know, quench that thirst for coverage shortly after the event. You know, we're thinking like within a few days after the event finished, and, you know, just cover on who won the event, you know, show a few highlights from it, and then kind of go from there, and then have an off-season schedule, purely off-season schedule. So like the idea was, you know, we're done TCO, it's coming out, you know, this time in December. Like, and part of that stems from the fact that we saw our viewership rise last year in the off season, and especially in the States, we had so many US viewers. You know, our Canadian viewers kind of stayed the same throughout, but our US viewers went just skyrocketed once the off season hit. So that was kind of one of those things that we were like, you know, going back and forth on, and Matt and I had some conversations about it. And, you know, what it really came down to is Matt's like, you know what, I think we can do this pretty fast. I think we can do it in 2 to 3 weeks. Like, you know, if we really push 2 weeks, this first one's going to be a little bit longer because it always takes a little bit longer on the first one to work out the kinks. So
we were both busy last weekend.
Yes, exactly.
We did every once in a while we do get a weekend to ourselves.
Exactly. So it's, you know, we're really going to shoot for that 2 to 3 weeks after the event. And, you know, ideally right now we're going to release, you know, coverage of this event after, not this coming weekend, but next weekend, the weekend, like not this coming weekend, the weekend after. And then hopefully, fingers crossed, every 2 weeks after that, because we have BC Open this weekend, and then we have Manitoba, and we have Yukon all in a row, or BC Open, Yukon, Manitoba all in a row. So that's 3 events in 3 weeks, and we're hoping that we have enough leeway and enough time to edit and get all those done, so we have a sort of every 2 weeks kind of thing. So
yeah, it's easy to forget, like a Jomez, like what they do is incredible in Central Coast and Gatekeeper and all the people that do next day coverage. It's incredible. But, you know, they're doing that. They have editors that just edit, you know, and it's us. You're looking at it, and we're filming it, and we're answering emails, and we're communicating with the next tournament. And we're also like driving the next day, like getting home from BC Open is like a day. That's a day totally burned. And like, it's easy to be like, well, how hard could it be? And then you do it. And then you realize like, oh, if I made plans with my friends last year to go away for a weekend, that's like 2 or 3 days that we can't work. And all of a sudden that's like, you know, 10% of your lead time that's just totally burned. So it's and then having to work, having a family, all these things, it does make it tricky. And but you know, we're getting better every time we do it. Like we were shooting to be like Jomez level quality. Like they're still the gold standard in terms of technical production, in terms of presentation, all of that stuff. And that's where we want to get to. And they've had 10 years to figure out how to get there. And before they got acquired, I think they had like 20 people on staff. Like they had dedicated camera operators, they had dedicated editors. I imagine they had somebody editing and then somebody else doing graphics at the same time, and somebody else doing like the audio stuff. And it's so that's what we're shooting with, but with 2 people doing it part-time. So
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting to me. This is kind of in my wheelhouse because, like we said before, about having the yin and yang of a partnership. The editing and the technical side of it is kind of in my area. I don't even want to say expertise. I'm not even going to use that word. But anything
I'd
that's
say it.
but these are the questions that I have, and you brought up so many great points there. And one of the things that I'll just touch on there is that maybe that's what people need to realize is that, yeah, people see this next day coverage from Jomez, but they don't realize that I'm sure they're probably getting the feed from the morning's round straight from the camera into the editing suite by lunchtime to work
No,
on
they're
it for the
getting
next day, right?
they get 9 holes at the turn. They swap the card out in the middle of the round, and they start going at it.
And then
and they work all
right
night. Yeah. So it really is incredible, especially what they were doing when they were a smaller, like when they were a smaller team and getting next day coverage out. Like that's filming and then literally editing and not sleeping, getting out and filming again. That's how they were doing it with a small crew. And I'm just not, I'm too old for that.
until Park Pro is sponsored by 5 Hour Energy or something like that. That's when maybe it'll happen.
Yeah.
And then you kind of touched on it there about you're working together, you're doing the editing, you're doing the film work and things like that. Like behind the scenes, how do you edit, or how is your workflow? Is one person the editor, one person's graphics? Like how do you split up the work after the footage is all done?
Basically, I did a bunch of graphics work to make Matt's job super complicated, but also super easy. Well, it's like super complicated but easier.
I'm the meat. Let me interrupt you, Andre. Okay. Before you be too humble about it, I'm the meat and potatoes guy. If you're familiar with video editing, Daryl, you know it is tedious. It is mind-numbing. It is soul-crushing for most of it. And then you get to do some fun creative things as well. Yeah. And so I do the meat and potatoes of the editing. And thanks to Andre's work on the graphic side of things, I can kind of figure out how to put that into the coverage now. But then we have all these other like beautiful things that go into it, like the player intros, the tournament intros, all that kind of stuff. And so that frees up Andre to do a bunch of that stuff to like take the polish to the next level kind of thing. So
well, if I can, that's probably a great point, Daryl, for me to chime in. And I wanted to say about that, and I've heard it before from other people as well, Matt, is that your intros are amazing for the CDGT events. And I just think back to the Nationals one and the amount of work that you guys got, all of the video that you captured, what you put together. Here I am. Okay, I'm a grown man with a couple of kids, so I'm already get a little bit emotional, but I'm sitting there and I'm like, and I'm also patriotic for my country. And then a tear starting to come down my eye. I'm like, what are you doing, Matt? This is disc golf. But amazing, man. I love it. It's so great. And keep it up, because that is definitely, with everything you do, that's just another cherry on top of your guys' work.
You know, it's so hard because Matt has set a bar. And now we're like, how are we gonna do these intros better than we did last year? So
yeah, that was we'd been like I was kind of throwing the idea around with Andre. I was like, we should do like an intro, like we should situate these things, we should get people hyped up, and then I wrote almost all of them before we started filming anything. Like we were in Andre's dining room before we filmed TCO, and I just like hammered out some scripts for some of these intros, and I was like, do you think something like this would like work in the coverage? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. And so I recorded it, we put it to music, and then Andre took all of the B-roll that we shot and for TCO and put it together. And I was like, oh my God, like this actually looks great. Yeah. It's like, this is super fun. And then once we did one for TCO and we were like, well, this is pretty cool. We're like, well, I guess we got to do it for all of them. And then we got to Nationals and I was like, we've relied on a lot of hyperbole through all of these intros, and like you get to a certain point where you like, how can you out hyperbole yourself? Like it's got to be more hype than every other tournament that we did. So we were just like, are we going to commit to this? Like, we just got to go full out, like, balls to the wall. Like, let's make this as emotional as we can. And we put it together, and like I had the audio done, and I was like, I don't know about this. Like this is maybe too cheesy. And then Andre threw some video on it, and I watched it, and I had the same reaction. I was like, oh, I'm feeling feelings watching this. So it was, it's like one of my favorite things is that we come up with like a vision for something, and we instantly know what the other person is thinking, and like we can always like zero in on where the other person is going with something. So if Andre's got some video, like we're just out on the course, or if we're taking B-roll before the tournament or something like that, I'm like, I know what he's looking at, I know how we're going to use this, and vice versa. Like if I have an idea, like he's like, yeah, I see it, I can do it, and then we just do it. And it's the most rewarding thing creatively. Like the filming disc golf is great, and framing the shots and trying to translate the flight of a disc is like, that's one thing, and that's super fun. But some of the others, like storytelling stuff that we get to do, is by far the most rewarding parts of our weeks. I think it's yeah.
Well, on the topic of audio and adding the voiceovers and things like that, a lot of your videos you've done the commentary for, but you've also had guest commentators as well. How does that take any workload away from you, because it's something you don't have to work for, but then you're giving it to somebody else, so you're kind of handing it off to somebody else to hopefully put their spin on it? But I mean, can be better because they've obviously played in the event. A lot of people that you've had Casey and Max, obviously, Jeremy, Jesse, Julie, lots of different people on there. So how did that come about, and how is it handing it off to somebody else?
It's funny because it's probably the one thing that people ask us about the most is like, just like how can I help? Can I do commentary? And it's like, it's a really hard thing because there's a lot of work that goes into this. And I'll start with from my point of view. When I grew up, I knew from a very early age that I was not going to be an athlete. And I kind of turned my sights. I was like, you know what? I want to be a sports analyst. Like, that's what I want to do. I want to be a sports analyst. I want to be involved in that stuff. And so commentary is, I fully admit I'm not the best commentator, but I'm working on it, and I'm hopefully getting better. But it is the funnest part of it. We put all this work into editing this video, and that is like to be able to put the like stamp on it and talk about it, and not only that, but being there in person and then watching this event like sometimes 6 to 10 times over, you really get a feel for what's happening. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. There's the part where you like, how do I act surprised when this thing happens? But it's also just like, a thing's coming, and so your timing is just, you can work on that timing and feed off each other. And I like to think of Jesse and myself as more of we take a little bit more of a serious approach, and Matt and Jeremy are fantastic because they're hilarious, and they really vibe off each other and have a really, they do really well. So and then to speak on bringing guests and stuff, sometimes it just doesn't work for our schedules. Sometimes I have the flu. Sometimes Matt can't make it work, or he's literally like too busy on the meat and potatoes. He's like, I can't do it, I gotta edit the next tournament. So that kind of all plays into it. But one of the things that we were really adamant about is having the two people in the same room. So one of the things we refuse to do is have something like this. It's great for podcasting, but if you're trying to interact with someone, that natural feeling of being in the same room with someone and commentating on the thing while you're watching it, and also just like there's a technical, there's a micro delays and all that timing stuff, all that adds up. And so with the idea of putting the best product forward, being in the same room is the main goal. So sometimes we'd love to have Ben on more, love to have Casey on more, but they're still an hour and a half away from here, where we have two mics. So it's like, hey, we need you to come here and watch 10 hours of disc golf and commentate on it. Can you do it in a day?
And they do.
And they do.
It's amazing. Yeah, you guys are obviously familiar with good quality audio, so you know that once you have a certain level of quality on the audio, you can kind of never go back. Like, we can't do commentary with crappy microphones now, and like Andre said, we don't want to have remote commentary in 2 different locations. And so yeah, those are some of the realities of it. But we do love getting people more acquainted with the professionals in Canada, because it's one thing to see them play disc golf, and that's great and that's fun, but so many, like, we're not talking to them in the middle of the round, so like, aside from their reactions to a missed shot or a made shot, you don't really always get a great sense of their personalities. And we've got some awesome personalities, so it's been really fun to let the world know who some of these people are, and commentary is a really good way to do that, where they get like you said, 3 or 4 hours for a tournament to get to know people. So Gabby has been like, I didn't know Gabby before we started filming. I knew her name, but I didn't know her, and she did a commentary on that TCO coverage last year, and we're like, oh man, Gabby's a natural at this.
She's the
like,
best.
Yes.
yeah. So, and then we wouldn't have known that if we didn't take the chance and just be like, hey, here's how you rent a microphone from Long and McQuaid, and here's how you set it up in the room. And we like took a bit of a leap that we'd get audio files back that were usable, and we did, and it was awesome. So but yeah, like Andre said, it's the most fun part of it, and we don't do it for like vanity reasons. Like, I'm not going to have a career of disc golf commentary, but it is the funnest part of it. And it's also like, we sort of feel like, we're putting a massive investment into this. The least we can get is some practice to do the thing that we want to get better at. Like, it's if we're putting in the work, like, the only way to get better at it is by doing it. And it is harder than people think. And it's the one job that everyone assumes they could do, because we've all sat around watching disc golf with our friends.
Yeah.
But it's harder than people think. And then the first time people try it out, they realize that. But what we've all found is that you do one round, and especially if you watch it back and suffer through hearing yourself talk for 4 hours, you get so much more insight on how to do it better the next time. Then you try it the second time, and maybe you only fix 20% of what you wanted to fix, but you're getting better at it. And so it's something that we both want to do and get better at. So we feel like we're buying ourselves the opportunity with all the work that we're putting in to improve at a skill that we both want to improve at. So
yeah, I recommend everyone try to record a podcast and not say
Oh,
Exactly.
yeah, and then listen back with a notepad.
yeah, exactly,
or whatever
Count
your
them.
keyword is. I have a lot of rights. Daryl has a lot of absolutely's.
Exactly,
We know what they
absolutely.
are, right?
Yeah.
As I say it there.
And
a
they've been
little
pointed
bit,
out to us as well. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
a little bit of like editing, picturing. I don't know if anyone, if your watchers have seen edited audio, you have your waveforms, right?
We have hearts.
Is that what this is?
Yeah, I
Is
guess
this-
so.
Only works on an
you have
iPhone, I guess.
Yeah, you have your waveform, and there we go. That I'd be able to see that in the waveform because I recognize it every time. So I wouldn't I'd go through, I'd be like, oh, that's what my looks like. And so I wouldn't even listen through. I just go through the waveform, and I'm like, there it is right there.
Yeah.
And so it's super fun. And I just want to touch on the Gabby commentary thing. It's funny, like Matt mentioned, the first time it was we rented a mic for her, and it worked out great. And then we kind of had some talks afterwards, and it was like, she's like, well, how much more is there going to be, because we asked her to do another one. And we're like, well, I mean, probably lots. So if we do FPO coverage, like, we're going to need a commentator, and like we said, we need them to be in the same room as each other. And we're not gonna I don't know too many FPO players around here. We don't have a lot in this area. And we told Gabby if she buys a mic, then she's pretty much locking herself into commentary as a Park Pro commentator. So you'll definitely be hearing her voice a lot more. So, and that's why I remember listening back to Gabby's episode, and everyone's like, "Wow, this is the best audio you guys have ever had from a guest," and that's because she bought a mic so that she can do commentary. So,
Well, thank you for that, guys, because
yeah.
we both have said with Gabby that, you know, her timing, her delivery, her cadence, her voice, all of that, she could read the phone book and you'd listen to it for an hour, right? Like it's
Exactly.
just, yeah. So having her on FPO is always going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
And one other quick one I wanted to add was, as you said, watching these players grow, we really noticed that, for example, with Casey, and listening to him when he was first doing interviews or first doing commentary, it wasn't quite like he was working on it. And then when we had him on our podcast, we're like, man, he's got this nailed. So it's nice to see the players grow as well, and then get used to those interviews and doing that public speaking.
Yeah, it's very funny. The first few times I've heard, like, you listen back to Casey's commentary, you're like, that's not the Casey I know. And like, I've spent some time with Casey, and just hanging out as, like, friends and stuff, and it's just like, Casey he doesn't sound like himself when he's on commentary. But like you said, he's gotten better at it. And that's one of those things, is like, you look at pro sports, they have athlete like media training. Like, you need to learn how to talk in front of a camera. And I think that's one of those things that, you look even on the disc golf pro tour, you start to see people are getting better about it, because they started doing press conferences and stuff like that. And Sophia, like, I watched her press conference when she was at Beaver State, and again, she's natural, and you could tell she's just genuine. And I think that's something that a lot of players, they'll get better at it. And it's something that, when people reach out to us, besides the professional commentators that have actually reached out to us and said, "Hey, do you need commentaries?" When you have just people saying, "Hey, like, can I commentate on it?" It's like, if I give this tournament to you, I've barely heard you speak in general. How do I know that you're going to take this and do, a somewhat professional job with it? So
it's so hard to say no to people, and I don't think people understand. Like, it's so many people ask us about it, and so we can't say yes to everybody, and it's so difficult. And it's never a personal thing, but it's like, people who help us out with stuff usually get ahead in the preferential order, and also, like, people who have displayed that they can do it. So, like, if you're like, man, I'd love to do commentary for Park Pro sometime, grab your camera and film something and talk over it and try it out. Talk like extemporaneously and see how you sound, and then have an honest assessment with yourself and say, can I do this better? What can I do to make it better? And then practice and do it again, because that's what we're doing, and that's what we would hope anybody would do if they wanted to take it seriously enough. So that would be my advice, is just like, go do a round and try and commentate it. Go film your friend, try and commentate it, and when you feel like you're proud of it, let us know, because that's the best way to impress us, is like, oh, you've put in the effort to do it. Okay, all right,
send us a demo tape. What you can do is, I find clips of disc golf and commentate on it, like, mute it, commentate on it, send it to us. It's not to say that we're not looking for commentators. It's, are you going to spend $700 on mics, because you need two of them? They're these ones that we have here. This is $350. You're going to spend $700 on mics, and for the chance to be a commentator.
Exactly.
And I want
to. Sorry.
No, you go ahead, Daryl.
I was just going to say, not only from a technical equipment point of view, like you were saying about, it's so hard to talk about disc golf. Everybody thinks they can talk about disc golf, but are you really talking about it? Like, when you're talking, what are you telling us? Is there a story? You're not just telling us what we're visibly seeing. We're not seeing, okay, he's standing up on the tee, he's throwing the disc. Everyone can see that. But what story are you telling, filling in the gaps when there's not much happening on the screen?
Yeah. What does that throw mean?
Yeah. And in terms of telling a story, I'm going to recommend, and I'm sure everybody's going to watch it anyway, but especially for the locals in Edmonton, but anybody that's watching this, watch the final round of River City Cup that's coming out tomorrow. Tim and Kristen do an amazing job of telling the story, especially in that final round, and the players provide the story.
Yeah.
And it's the last 2023 tournament that we're putting out, but it might be the most exciting finish.
Awesome.
It's up there with all of the best tournaments that we filmed in terms of how that thing went down.
Couldn't be better timing.
Yeah, so that's coming out tomorrow, and it's such a fun watch, and I'm so happy that we got to do that one, and Tim and Kristen did an awesome job of taking us through it in that final round. So if you don't watch all of it, watch the final round. I promise you will be entertained.
But you should probably watch all of it.
But you should probably watch all of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And just to tack on, I just wanted to, because this is really key to our mission statement when we started working together in Park Pro and making the Canadian Disc Golf Tour, was that we wanted to give a springboard for Canadian disc golfers, both just getting on coverage, getting their names out there, but also giving them practice playing on camera. Like it's so tough to be a great Canadian professional playing like local A tiers, and you play your 3 or 4 regional A tiers a year, and then you get really good. You're 1,000 rated, you're 1010, you're 1015 for MPO, and you're getting over 900, 920 as an FPO player. And then the only other like real place to go is a jump to a major professional tour like the Disc Golf Pro Tour in the States. And the difference between nobody watching you at a regional A tier and playing on camera in front of live fans, in front of 4 or 5 cameras, on a card with Paige Pierce and whoever it is, like that's a major jump.
Yeah.
And from maybe like 1 out of 10 people will do an interview with the local newspaper if they're in a small town, to like doing a press conference and trying to do media. It's a major jump, and that's where we feel like we could fit in. And that was what we got so excited about, was like, we can get so many players like this experience of playing on camera in a final round, like simulate the nerves of what it would be like to play on the Pro Tour in a major or something like that, but at a smaller, more manageable level. And the same thing with like doing the podcast and what you guys do. It's like, this is valuable experience for a lot of these athletes, and we're not helping them with their swings. God knows we're not helping them with their putts. But like, if we can contribute to the Canadian ecosystem in this one little way that we think is like somewhat significant, that's mission accomplished for us. And that's really where we wanted to go with this, and what we wanted to do with this. It was have that place for people to find success and confidence on their way to doing other things.
100%.
That's fantastic.
I just have a few more points that I want to get to, then I'll hand it back to Jeremy. But one thing that you mentioned there about being a springboard for Canadian disc golfers, and that's 100% what Jeremy and I are, the mission, like you said, the mission statement of our podcast. But I have a personal story on that, is that we also do the fantasy picks as well, the fantasy league that we do, but we concentrate on Canadian, and it changes every event. But it really hit home when we were at Hidden Gem a couple of weeks ago, and somebody was telling me they were checking the scores, and they were like, "Oh, I see. I forget who it was exactly, but I'm just going to throw some names out there. But I see Luc Levesque is moved up, and Justin Zimmer, whoever it was." And I'm like, 6 months ago, you never knew who those guys were, but now you're checking the leaderboard to see where they're going to be on the leaders. So I thought that was exactly what we wanted. We just want to get those non-big names, if you want to call them, of Canadian disc golf into everyone's minds and households, right?
Mm-hmm.
We love it. I don't think we can really truly express how much we appreciate what you guys do, taking Canadian disc golf seriously as we do, because it's there's not a lot of people doing it and doing it well, and so it makes us feel like we have a reason to be doing this, and that we're not alone. And I'm sure the athletes feel the same way. Like, they're getting Luc Levesque and Justin Zimmer are they get geared up for a tournament, like they take it super seriously too, and it's meaningful to them as well to have other people take it seriously too. So we love that you guys are feeling what we're feeling, which is this is super cool, and this is a super cool thing to take seriously.
100%. Yeah. Okay, last few things. These are going to be quick fire because these are just going to be for me. They're probably not going to be for anybody else. What cameras do you use?
Oh, I might have to defer to the camera question to Andrik. I don't know anything about cameras.
We have two camcorders, and they will likely be the first things that we upgrade. But I think they're Sony handy cams. I don't know what the name is. Like
they're AX53s, which is like it's not a professional model, but it takes, when you do it right, pretty nice video and outdoors of moving objects. So it is a very affordable for what it does model, and that gets the action. That's our taking it, behind the tee and catch cam, and they do the job for that.
Perfect.
Yeah, and then I have on feature cam my setup. Oh well, we can talk about the setup too, because that's also important. Is Matt has a monopod underneath, and for our viewers that don't know, it's like a tripod, but it's just one single pole. It has 3 little legs on the bottom, and that's just for like a little bit more stability. But it's super easy to hold up and down, maneuver. You can move it around. But yeah, and the important thing on those two is that they have the zoom, because you can zoom in. It has the power zoom. It takes a little bit of getting used to, and Sean, shout out to Sean and Vicky, who are our main camera people from last year. They, it takes like probably a round or two to really get used to it, and they were just crushing it by the end. So it's, you can tell when we didn't have one of those two on catch cam, you could tell when we didn't have them, because it just wasn't quite as crisp. And that's one of those things, that was a learning experience, this coming weekend at BC Open, where we were scrambling for a catch cam. Thankfully we found someone, but we're going to make sure to spend some time to let them get used to that zoom and figuring out the movement. And I mean, I can get like going on a tangent here. We're talking about gear, but I'm going to talk about the mentality of a camera person, because if you haven't played disc golf and you're a camera person, you don't know where the disc is going. If you have a lot of knowledge of what a forehand's going to do, you think, and the course itself too, that all that stuff makes such a difference. Because if someone's lining up a forehand and you're like, you can see them go like, they kind of have this arcing, they're going to try to flex something over with something super overstable, or they're going to do something with an anhyzer. But then if you know the hole, you know where that disc is going to end up. So then you can kind of predict, and you can kind of already pre-time yourself. So if you don't have all those things dialed at once, the camera can be just a little bit off, and that makes Matt's job a lot harder.
It's not easy to find people that know discs, how discs fly, and also are willing to operate a camera. It's surprisingly difficult.
Yes.
Yeah.
Daryl, you're in heaven right now, aren't you?
This is my world. Yeah. Okay,
yeah, Daryl, what are you doing for the rest of the year?
Well, I was going to mention it because I did put it out on our social media that you were looking for somebody there. You were going to pay cash for the camera operator, and I put it out that
I don't want to say pay cash in case the government's listening. Let's just say they will be compensated in a legal way.
Our camera people.
But yeah, I put out that our flight's included, and if I wasn't playing a tournament this weekend anyway. But yeah. Last question, then it's a very geeky one as well. What do you use to edit?
Well, we didn't even find out about Andre's other camera. First of all,
got to set up
the nice camera.
Yeah, we went back.
That's the one that I think it's kind of the one that pulls it together. It's getting the catch cam, I call it chase cam and catch cam. Getting those two is obviously, like, we're talking about meat and potatoes. That's the stuff. That's the gameplay. But to really try to make things look polished, and this is something that I wanted to emphasize in our coverage, is having a third camera at as many of our events as we can. And thankfully we had them at all of them last year. And that's our feature cam, and that is what I run. And it's a Sony A7 IV. And I bought it specifically. It's a photo camera. It's a DSLR, but I bought it specifically because it has some decent video capabilities. And then we just have a gimbal, and this gimbal does not owe me anything. It's the very first Ronin S that came out. This thing, like, sometimes I'm like shaking it. It's got like wobblers on it, but
It's twice the weight of the camera. I don't know how he does it for a whole
my
round.
forearms are so like huge by the end of the year because the thing is heavy. But yeah, so that's what we run. We run a gimbal with the DSLR on it, and then if you have some nerds in here, tech nerds in here, the thing that we're running this year that is hopefully making, we can already confirm that is making the editing process better, is we're running these Tentacool, I think is what it's called. And it's just a digital encoder. It puts time code in each of these things. And so it hopefully syncs them all up. There's still quite a bit of maneuvering around, but it is a massive time saver. So that's kind of the majority of our tech. And then, as far as our range stuff goes, we just bought some fancy ones this year, but
Rain covers. They're plastic bags, basically.
Yeah, plastic bags.
Yeah. And then we do our editing through the Adobe suite. So Premiere Pro is doing the bulk of the editing work, but then After Effects is doing a lot of heavy lifting on the graphic side of things. And we've got our own secret sauce on how we put that together. So, but yeah, there's a lot of, if you really want to nerd out about that stuff, there's a lot of technical information you can find on YouTube.
We talked about it earlier, Google Sheets. Sheets
and Google Sheets. Honestly, like as much time as we spent on the graphics package and putting that together before the year worked, we probably spent half to 2/3 the amount of time putting together a spreadsheet to feed the information, because you gotta, if you don't want to manually enter every single result on every single hole length, etc., like all of it, there has to be some efficiencies involved. So we've got the most complicated spreadsheet I've ever made in my life, and it's like a bit of a Frankenstein's monster, but it's crazy. I worked in an office for most of my career before this, and I never had to build a spreadsheet this complicated and vast, and that does a lot of the work for us. Wow. So
it's literally called the Score Monster. So
yeah. It's
amazing. I've edited a few videos that I did for my my first channel that I had before we got together as a podcast, and I didn't even know that was an ability to take a spreadsheet and put it into and do all that manually or automatically, because I'm back in the manual days of copy and paste the whole and update the footage and the par and everything like that. So that's interesting to me. So
I did about a 50-hour deep dive into it to figure out how it works. So
wow.
And they, obviously you're at that level where anything that can save you half an hour, 2 hours is going to benefit you so much more, just to free up time to get everything else done, right? So I can imagine.
Yeah, well, everyone was watching Christmas movies last winter or 2 winters ago. I was watching YouTube videos how to do this thing.
Yeah,
at least we live in a world now where that information is out there, right?
It's crazy. You have to dig sometimes, but it's out there.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, so we encourage, we're trying not to be shy about how we do everything, because go nuts, everybody.
Get out and try it.
It's doable. I want to encourage people because it is absolutely doable. I want to warn people, it is harder than it looks, but it is absolutely doable. And get out there and film some B tiers and C tiers and film your friends and put it together, and let's all work together to grow this Canadian disc golf thing together.
And if you're listening to all this and man, that sounds awesome, I want to work for free or sometimes lose money, we'll hire you.
Awesome. It is also nice, we have the people that have done work for us have been paid for the work, and that also feels good.
That is, I will say, that is the one thing right off the hop when Matt and I were first talking about this thing is I know what it's like to try to do camera work and have everyone try to get things for free, and it's not very fun. And so I said, even if it's a little bit, we are paying our camera people before we are paying ourselves. And I just seen the chat here, Ryan said, he from Local Disc Golf, shout out to him, he had an absolute blast filming nationals. He came out and kind of saved us for the last round. And he's one of those guys that he's got camera experience, and so he picked up this camera. It took him probably 3 holes, and then he got the hang of it a little bit. So
awesome.
We may have paid him in kind. He might be the one singular exclusion to
yes, that's right.
We might have paid him in kind, but
yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks again, Ryan.
Yeah. Cool, guys. Well, what we'll do is we've got 2 more fun little things that we want to go through before we let you go. We'll get to our Desert Island discs eventually here, but before that, you've heard of Team MVP, guys. Everyone out there listening, you've heard of Team MVP, Team Discmania, Team Innova, but have you heard? And I need a costume change for this. About
I left my thing in the car. We'll do it with that. Don't worry about it. We'll do it.
Yeah, new important team of all teams. Team Lisac. So,
pew, 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 pew.
So with that being said, Matt, you've got your.
Thank you.
So those of you who don't know, as you can see by this lovely hat I'm wearing, we have a new Canadian disc golf team out there that's out there trying to rock things and make a difference on the disc golf course. It's called Team Lisac, and we have the captain, the head of the team, to tell us a little bit about it.
It's so exclusive. I don't even know if we should be telling anybody about it, Jeremy. Like it's that Daryl and Andre aren't even on Team Lisac, and so this is. I feel like maybe we're letting people into the a secret society here. Yeah.
Well, I know you wanted to keep it under wraps, but it was just one of those things where I think it was time. 2024 is the year. People need to know that Team Lisac is going to be out there and going to be performing.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, instead of maybe me and you just gabbing about it, is there some way we can tell people this story?
I think maybe we can. Daryl, can you help us out with that?
Queuing it right up right now.
Okay, this is some good stuff.
And it's another berg roller for Team Lisac. They keep missing putts high in the headwind. I don't know what they're doing out there. Team Lisac is in disarray. They've given away the entire lead here. And team manager Matt Lisac should be resigning in disgrace after this performance. He should go live in the mountains.
Well, that's a nice looking hat. Yeah, I've seen that hat before somewhere.
Yeah. I'm wearing this hat, and this hat says Lisac on it. And I didn't know who Lisac was, what this was, if this was like the initials that stood for something. I wasn't too sure. Matt, if you are listening to this, here's my story. Robin Lambert, who was organizing, he was the TD of the tournament. He pulls out this Lisac hat, and he says, all right, we've got a Team Lisac hat here, and we're trying to put more members on the team. So we got 3 of them to draw today, and we're going to draw the first one here. And sure enough, Jeremy wins. And I'm like, woo, I'm part of Team Lisac. I don't know what that means, but I'm part of Team Lisac.
I think he said that it was an exclusive team.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
So if you have seen, Matt, that picture out there, you'll see Jeremy in there. I'm part of Team Lisac, so that's where this one came from.
Yeah, there you go. Matt, reach out to Jeremy and let him know what his responsibilities and duties are as part of Team Lisac. Team Lisac.
Team Lisac. Team Lisac.
It's time.
Jeremy,
Yes.
welcome to Team Lisac.
Oh, thank you, Matt.
Congratulations.
So excited.
Now, the first thing you got to know, Team Lisac isn't just some team like Discmania that anybody can join. It's an exclusive club. Only the select few best players.
Oh, the suspense, the buffering. This is a true story, by the way. This is a documentary. I don't know if we can get that clear ahead of time, but this is all 100% how this all went down.
We've already got questions about the sweet potatoes and how they work into the Team Lisac lore.
Oh yeah, it's You know, when you give
Only
up on your
the
dream,
select few best players club. Only the select few best players.
we need to pay for better internet over there, Daryl. We got to get you on that fiber. We got to get you on that fiber.
You know, it's always the same way. It plays seamlessly in rehearsals.
Yeah.
This must be Park Pro's first take on theatrical editing and filming.
Oh,
I told you they don't. This is
It's that
the
secret.
people they don't want you to know.
Yeah.
exactly.
It's the government. I think is shutting down your internet here. Okay, we're rolling.
We'll get there.
Let's hopefully, it seems like it's stuck at that one point.
Jeremy,
Yes.
welcome to Team Lisac.
Oh, thank you, Matt.
Congratulations.
So excited.
Now, the first thing you got to know, Team Lisac isn't just some team like Discmania that anybody can join. It's an exclusive club. Only the select few best players can join.
Sorry, guys. Do you mind if I play through?
Oh, hey, Jeremy.
How's it going, guys?
Yeah,
hey, thanks.
Anyway, it's a very exclusive club. What are you doing?
What? I'm warming up, getting ready for the round.
That's not how we warm up.
No?
Okay, and we're good. Hole 12. You got a couple of different options here. We got a window over here. We got over this way. How are you playing this hole?
Well, it's winter and the lake's frozen. So I'm going to take my time lapse and do a nice forehand out over the lake, bring it right back to the basket.
Okay, no, you're not.
I'm not?
No, forehand berg roller.
Berg roller?
Berg roller. You got any bergs?
No.
Now you do. Watch this.
Darn headwind.
So that shows you guys that's exactly what it takes to be part of Team Lisac. There's a lot of work involved. There's some really strict rules about being on the team. What can we expect out of the team this year, Matt?
I'd say whatever your expectations are for Team Lisac, dial them down like 75 notches. So this is, first of all, I do want to shout out, we mentioned them at the end, but Treeline DGA, Johnny Price and Aubrey, they used to be down in Red Deer, and I think they just moved out to Castlegar or something like that. But they've been running a small disc golf apparel company for a bunch of years, and they do custom shirts. They'll take a shirt and put your PDGA number on it and your name. Like you want to turn an existing shirt into a jersey, they can do that kind of stuff. Small limited runs. They also have a bunch of their own cool designs. If you've seen people with "I like big putts" and on their hats, or you've seen people with shirts that just say "nice" in some really cool 80s retro fonts, that's them. That's Johnny and Aubrey and Treeline. So I had bought a nice shirt with my PDGA number on it. This was back when I was trying to be a real professional disc golfer, and they were just kind enough to print me up a hat that said Lisac on it. And it was like the happiest moment of my life. And I'm not enough of a narcissist to buy a hat that says Lisac on it, but I am enough of a narcissist to wear it if somebody gives me one as a gift. So I started wearing it, and then a couple of the guys in Red Deer ended up, they said, "Man, this is cool. We should surprise Matt at a tournament and just all show up in Lisac hats," because they're nice guys like that. So Robin Lambert and Pete Lisac and Dion Clifford, formerly the Prodigy Street team down there, they all showed up, and they all had Lisac hats one day, and they're like, "We're all Team Lisac now," and I was like in tears. Like, this is the greatest thing that ever happened. And then several of my family members who share the last name Lisac was like, "That's cool." And I was like, "Yeah, I should get some more made for them." So I ended up ordering a bunch more hats for all of my Lisac family. And so now there's all these Lisac hats floating around. And I told Johnny and Aubrey, I was like, "You should, as a joke, we should print off 3 more Lisac hats, and you just put them in your shop and don't explain it to anybody." Because it's like, who the hell? Like, they've got all this nice disc golf stuff, and then just a random hat that says Lisac. And I thought that was really funny. And predictably, they didn't sell great. They were not moving like hotcakes like you would imagine them to. And so at the end of the day, I was just like, all right, I'd already bought them. I bought them to sit on the shelf as a joke. I literally paid for the hats to just sit on a shelf because I thought it would be a funny joke. So, and then I guess they were doing some spring cleaning, and they were like, "Hey, we should donate these to a tournament. That'd be sweet." So at the battle there in Wetaskiwin, they ended up as gifts in the players pack. And then so you and Kyra, and then I'm forgetting the name of the third person that ended up with one, but you all ended up on Team Lisac, whether you like it or not, and now you're stuck. And now there's a video of your training montage, and it's on the internet, so it'll be there forever. So
it was awesome, Matt. We appreciate you collaborating and putting that together, because it was so much fun doing it, and then to watch it here, I was trying not to laugh ahead of time because it's just that funny.
Thanks for coming out and doing it, and meeting a stranger at the disc golf course. And I think I just emailed you. I was like, "Hey, you come to Rundle. I want to do a thing." And you're like, "Okay, let's do it."
If there's one thing you got to know about Jeremy, he's up for anything.
Yeah,
you're a gamer.
Usually.
So yeah, that was super fun. Thanks for doing that with us. And yeah, you got to have fun on the disc golf course, Jeremy. Mm-hmm. First and foremost, you got to be as excited for your card mates' good shots as you are of your own, because we're here to celebrate the flight of the disc and cool things happening. And it doesn't really matter whose hand that disc leaves. If something cool happens, it's the whole reason why we're out there on the course. It's to get to watch cool things happen with the Frisbee. So that's important. You do need to throw the occasional berg roller. I was not joking about that. That was deadly serious. All team members have to learn the berg forehand roller, because it's the greatest, most underrated shot in disc golf.
Say you're gonna have to, but then you're gonna want to.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's like it's an addiction.
And on top of that too is, now that I've got a nice Zuka card, I've got lots of space for my carbs, so I'll get my sweet potatoes in there to keep me going throughout the round as well. We'll be all set for that.
Yeah, that's really a metaphor. Like the sweet potato, it's like the sweet things in life, but then there's the onion, which is, it's bitter and painful, but we have to go through tears sometimes to get the balance in our lives that we need. And onions are a metaphor for that. So that's how we came up with that. We storyboarded. That was shot at Andre's house, by the way. If you heard a little girl saying something, that's that was Juniper as well. Yeah, she was not. She didn't understand the quiet on set part of things.
It took a few. Some of the shots took a few times because Matt would come out the door and then Juniper would come out the door right after me. So.
Yeah, and it's not. I don't have a
cat on her though. That would have been perfect.
That would have been pretty. Oh, we should have thought of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you miss a putt, it's always the win, Jeremy. It's
always
you don't ever blame yourself for missing a putt, man. It's missed putts happened, and every single one of them is because of the wind.
I'll remember that.
Yeah,
these are great pearls of wisdom that we can take into the weekend here at River City Cup. But
Yeah.
speaking of being out there in the snow when we filmed that, it was cold, it was freezing. But with the weather that's changed now, it's very much warm and hot, almost desert-like in some cases, wouldn't you say, Daryl?
Hey, he's a master at that.
Now it's time for desert island discs. Picture this. You've taken a relaxing cruise, however the ship goes down. You manage to swim to an island, and fortunately for you, there's an 18-hole disc golf course. Which 3 discs are you taking with you on the island?
So if you've watched the show before, you know this is a staple in our show. It's taken on so many forms over the episodes. I don't even know where it's going at this point. But basically, 3 discs that you couldn't live without. If you're on a desert island, which 3 discs are you taking with you? And
After the Berg, Matt.
Well, hey, no spoilers.
it could be Berg. We've had Firebird, Firefly. So, you know.
You,
Well,
think
actually,
you,
Scott
might, you might know
Stokely.
who that was.
Yeah,
I'm thinking I know who that was.
And actually, Scott did pick Berg. So, yeah, we that one's done.
Tim's got more aces on one particular hole with one particular Sexton Firebird than I have in my entire life.
Yes.
It's so selfish.
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
Whoever wants to start.
Why don't
Andre.
you go ahead, Matt? You go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Andre.
Okay, I'll go first. So I was tempted to go with all the same discs because I kind of jokingly think Taylor had made a post a winter or something last winter. He was on a trip somewhere and he asked kind of a similar question, and I jokingly answered 3 MVs in different plastics, and you know it's kind of I would answer that, but I would like a full set. So I will put an MV in there. And then I'd say the zone has I've been my favorite disc to try and to throw is a overstable approach disc. And I've tried many different discs and I just always keep coming back to the zone. So that's definitely in there. And then I think I'd want to get a little bit more distance if needed. So probably an Insanity. And the only reason is because it's the first driver I felt like I was able to throw and actually get a little bit more distance on than any other driver. And it wouldn't just go left every time. I'd be able to like have it go straight a little bit and then left. So
yeah.
For nostalgic reasons, as well as just I recently put one back in my bag and I was like, man, why haven't I put more effort to put one of these back in my bag in the past?
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, we envy your choices. We know you'd be in the zone, and if you spent a lot of time on that island, insanity would soon set in. So that works out well.
Yeah.
Okay, and how about you, Matt?
I gotta go with the Berg. I don't have any fun jokes about it. It's just the best disc ever made. It's if I'm on an island and I get a floaty, like a nice glidey putter, there's a good chance that that's going to fly into the ocean and I may never see that again. The Berg, it doesn't have enough glide to escape an island and it'll be parked where I want it to be parked. So got to go with the Berg. I'll putt with the Berg. I can't putt with the Berg, but you know what? I'm on an island. I can't complain. Whatever. For a mid-range, I'm going to go with an EMAC Truth. It is the quintessential straight flying, but with a little bit of finish, mid-range, and truth is beauty, and the truth shall set you free. And it's a great disc. And you know what? I'm going to go with a machete. Partly because we're going to need to cut down some foliage around that island to build a hut. We're going to need something practical. But also, from a disc golf perspective, you need something overstable. It gets windy on these desert islands. I don't know if you've ever been to a desert island, but it's just nothing. But you'd think from the postcards, it's just like beautiful and serene. But the ocean's a windy damn place, and you need a driver that can handle that wind. So for real and fake reasons, I will go with the machete.
Yeah, those are good choices too, Matt. I'd agree with you. You know, the Berg's that double-edged sword. It's going to be that great disc for you, but it's probably the same reason you missed it when you were in your boat. You couldn't avoid it. It's what crashed you and ended you up on the island. So
that's right.
I was gonna say, at least you know that a boat's coming for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Nice Berg. This is right ahead. Isn't that what the saying is in the movie?
Yes, that's right. Straight ahead. So, guys, you've been so gracious with your time. We've had such a good time with you. Before we let you go, we do have one or two listener questions, and we also want to give you a chance to do some shout outs. But the one listener question that we can see right in front of us right now is everybody wants to know, how do you balance your work, your disc golf, and just your day-to-day life?
Yeah, this one's big. This is I saw that question come through and I was like,
That was for me, actually. I put that in there because I was hoping one of the three of you would know.
it is really tough. I will say, since starting to film disc golf, our playing has gone down quite a bit. That's one of those things. It's like, and I've had this conversation with, I'm sure you guys have. I don't remember hearing this exact words, but I've heard Carrie say it so many times too. She's gets more satisfaction out of running events than from playing these days. And it's a similar sentiment with us. It's we get we get a lot of satisfaction from showcasing Canadian disc golf, and um, you know s- eh, we read every single YouTube comment that comes through. We listen to all the podcasts anytime we're mentioned. It really warms our hearts, and that's really what it's all about. So um, you know as far as that's just in the disc golf part of the slashes there. But as far as the work and the life part of it, well, I kind of, for me personally, it's, I have my wife and my daughter, and they will always be number one, but they'll be like number 1.5 when there's a tournament that weekend. Because it's a good example of this is I'll be missing my daughter's second birthday because we have to fly to the Yukon. And so I'm like, you know what? I can do it when she's 2. I don't think I can do it when she's 3. So
Right.
that's kind of an example of that. And then the work part of it is, we've touched on how difficult this is. I actually had to take a promotion at work. Oh dang, I got a promotion and a pay raise at work. But it's a necessary part of it. It's a passion project that we're really hoping can be a sustainable thing in the future. But while we're in these stages, we have to work. And I will say I have bags under my eyes because it's really hard to manage all three of those things. And especially, we're kind of in the middle of a really crazy stretch here where we have 4 tournaments in 5 weekends that we have to film and edit. I like, the nice thing is that, Matt has a seasonal job right now and he's able to take on the bulk of that editing. So if it wasn't for that, then I don't think, we would certainly be looking at an off-season schedule because that balance just isn't there. Because I'm gonna come home from work, I'm gonna play with my daughter, I'm not gonna edit. The only time I have for editing is after 8 or 9 o'clock. Lately it's been more like 9 o'clock by the time she goes to bed. So then I get an hour or two of editing, and then I'm up at 5 o'clock to go to work. So it's just you just kind of got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, it's tough. It's like, hey, can I stretch out another half hour of work? I don't feel like it, but can I do it? Yeah.
But all that to say, we talked about the commentary being the funnest part. It's actually the second funnest part, because being the shooting, the filming of it, being on the cards, being able to chat with everyone at the tournaments, that's the actual funnest part, because that's you're interacting with people. That's really when you start to see personalities. You can start building these stories in your mind and planning them out. So yeah.
Well, that's awesome,
it comes
guys.
back to that old saying that, if you find a job that you love, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
And as long as you can kind of trade that over to your hobby as well, hopefully it doesn't feel so much like a work or a chore that you have to get done. It's one of those passion projects, like you said, that I don't want to say you look forward to editing, because we've already discussed that it can be monotonous and mind numbing and boring and repetitive. But the whole, when you get that thing at the end, it kind of makes all those long nights a little bit worth it, right?
Yeah, and
we do a lot of
comments and stuff that people will put in there, and and that's the thing that we value as well, is that when someone's, we put this out and we put it out because we love it, and you put it out because you love it. But when you can see even one other person appreciate what you did, the amount that does for a creator is huge, right? So
you don't understand until you've done it. But anytime somebody's like, hey, give us a like, give us a comment, say hi, like, it's because it means that much. And so everybody that has been super positive about it, we try and say it as much as we can, and it's always very authentic because it really does make the whole thing worthwhile. And if you don't feel like putting a comment or a like on a video, but you came up to us at a tournament and you said, "Hi, I've been watching your stuff," like that means so much to us. It's like we want people to watch it and enjoy it. And so when we know people are watching it, like the numbers are there, and that's great. But like when somebody just puts in a comment that says, "Hey, this was fun. Hey, I love that shot from Noah on hole 5," that kind of stuff, it goes such a long way for us. So so everyone that has done that, everyone that's put a comment or a like or said hi to us in person, thank you. It means a whole lot. And bigger thanks to the patrons, of course.
Yeah,
Give everybody a round of applause there.
I think I'll add on to that a little bit, because one of the things, we talked about this being a stepping stone and or a springboard. Say it however you like, but Sophia and Gabby are amazing players, and they got sponsorships this year, and to even have a little tiny part of that being able to showcase them was that just like feeling like we're a small part of that is so heartwarming and awesome to see as well. So we're hoping that players are building a portfolio for these players to showcase their talents to sponsors and hopefully launch their disc golf careers,
or even just like have their parents understand what they have been doing every weekend for the last 5 years.
Well, all right, guys. Well, thank you so much, Daryl.
There was one other
Okay.
question, or somebody wanted to make a point. We were talking about Google Sheets. I'm not sure who it's from, but somebody said, "I'm a Google Sheets guy too. My coworkers are upset because I keep turning their Excel files into G Sheets." I don't know if that rings true with any of you two.
That's yeah, I was the one that put that comment in.
And that was you? I wasn't sure.
That was me. It's funny because I've been using it at work quite a bit, and with this promotion, I'm seeing a lot of the back end stuff, and I was like, I don't have Excel on my computer.
And then, dude, you should get it. And Google Sheets is good, but Excel is
no. But the thing is, like, we're already so with our company, we're so integrated with the Google already, so it just makes sense to have most of this stuff on Google so it can all talk to each other. So
I wasn't sure if you had a ringer in the chat there. One other question from Brendan McKinstry. He's always watching our show.
What's up, Brendan?
He left the chat, but he put in a question. He's almost in BC this week. He needs a disc golf course in Waterton.
Yes,
that's the answer. There isn't one, I don't think.
Oh, okay. I thought he was looking for a recommendation. He wants to
Crow's
put one in
past
Waterton
or something like, or past or something like that.
Waterton's technically Alberta, I think, but
they're
right on the border.
That whole Crow's Nest Highway is like some of my favorite disc golf in the entire country. Surely there's got to be something near there. But yeah, look it up on UDisc. It's just, you can't fail.
There's a cool course in Pincher Creek. It's not a great course, but there's a cool course where they set it up. It's not like your typical 18-hole course. I don't even know if it's 18. It might just be 9, but it's set up throughout the town. So you play a hole and then you walk through the town to your second hole, and then you play that hole, and then you might play 2 or 3 holes in a row, but then you walk into these different areas. And so it's a really interesting way that they were able to get more like people to check out the town. And then the cool thing about it is that all the baskets were made by the high school medal class. So
oh, nice.
Yeah, and they're not the worst. They're not disc catchers and they're not, but they're not the worst.
But I would say
they're no disc golf park basket. But
yeah, there you go. I think I've heard of them as a sponsor on a show that I watch every now and then.
Good, it's working. Get on onto the Crow's Nest Highway and get over to Sparwood too, because Sparwood and Elkford, it's like those are 2 amazing courses, kind of in the middle of nowhere, and they're maybe an hour and a half away from each other, and it is just gorgeous disc golf.
Awesome,
nice. Yeah. Well, guys, we'll leave it at that. And what we want to do is give you a moment. Again, we appreciate all the time you've given us. We love everything you're doing, and we're so glad that you were willing to come on and talk with us. excited for the Canadian Disc Golf Tour this year. But before we let you go, is there anything that you want to shout out or something that we didn't cover?
I just want to shout out the River City Cup. It's this weekend. It's one of those things that we wish we could be there, but unfortunately, same weekend as BC Open. And fun fact: River City Cup was the first. It was the second disc golf tournament I ever photographed. So,
yeah, cool.
I think I have photos of Matt in my library, actually.
There you go.
If you played one of those and you bought a photo from somebody, it was probably Andre. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I think the biggest thing is just if you like what we do and you want to support us, head over to patreon.com/parkpro, because it's as little as $1.50 a month, and that doesn't seem like much, but when it all adds up, it pays for things. Like, I'm sure you guys are aware, like, you guys have mics to pay for, camera gear to pay for. We'd like to upgrade our cameras, and all of that stuff. Speaking of Riverside and stuff, like, programs all cost money. All the support that we can get is really appreciated. So if you head over to patreon.com/parkpro, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And you get all the tournaments earlier than everybody, and you get entered into all the draws that we do. And and you get our eternal dying love and adoration and affection, which you can't really put a price on. But
no, and we've seen your personalities in person here tonight. So whether it's Park Pro, CDGT, check out your guys' Discord. There's so many ways to connect with you. So get out there and do that. And there you go, patreon.com, Park Pro. Look at my tech wizard go.
Yeah. And thank you guys again. Can't say it enough for what you guys do. You guys are contributing such a positive thing to the Edmonton scene, but the disc golf world as a whole. I love that you're doing Canadian fantasy golf. I think that's the coolest thing. We would have done that if we were cooler, but we didn't think of it.
You got enough on your plate.
Yeah. This was a real joy to be a part of this. And just again, thank you everybody that checked out our stuff and took it seriously and gave us encouragement and cheered on the Canadian players. It's it really does make all of it worthwhile for us. So can't thank everybody enough.
And I'd also like to specifically thank my wife, who has put up with a lot of editing and everything.
Round of applause there for sure.
Yeah. And who knows what terrible issues Juniper will grow up with thanks to that second birthday thing. But
she's going to be in love with disc golf. So
that's right. Yeah. We'll see. Awesome, guys. Awesome. Thanks so much. We'll catch you at one of the courses this year, and have a great time at BC Open. We can't wait to see the coverage.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for your time, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Just where you hang up.
You got just to hang up there, man.
I can hang up?
Yeah,
we're good?
You're good.
Okay, I'm never sure. Sometimes you got to stick around
after you hang up. That's all.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Awesome. Have a good night.
Daryl, man, that was awesome. Those guys are so much fun.
Yeah, and it's nice to hear nice words from them about what we're doing, and we echo it right back at them. It's like, as long everybody all has the same end goal, and it's to raise the awareness and raise Canadian disc golf. So they're just killing it out there with the coverage and creating these tournaments for everyone to play in.
Yes. And as we always like to say at this point, if you like what you're seeing, do us a favor, subscribe, like, follow, comment, do all those things we just talked about. It makes a big difference for us content creators, and we'd appreciate it if you would. Tell your friends and family as well.
And I'd just like to say that you can follow us on Instagram at @chainout_podcast.
Awesome.
Hey, I got a new toy, Jeremy.
Yeah, I know how much you like those new toys, so that's fantastic.
There you go. And if you're not following us on Instagram, follow us everywhere else at @chainoutpodcast, all one word.
There you go. Well, we are going a bit long, but let's wrap up like we normally would, and you keep me on track, and we'll do it a little quicker than normal. What do you think?
Let's go for it. Yeah, keep it going.
Okay. So if you guys got a secret word or you got an idea for it, start thinking about it now. We want you to put a secret word in the comments that we're going to have for other people to show they've listened this far. One of the things we did talk about there with Matt and with Andre was the third Canadian A tier that's coming up, and that's in Vancouver and the Langley, BC area, and that is the BC Open, or the British Columbia Open. We're going to be doing our fantasy picks show. We mentioned this gentleman in the program earlier, and that is Ryan Bonner from Local Disc Golf. He is going to be joining us for that. So watch in the next couple days for that to come out. Remember, as Daryl will tell you, if you want to win gift cards as part of our fantasy picks contest, what do you got to do?
So comment your favorite team on the YouTube video. It'll be a fantasy episode. It'll be different from our regular episodes. Leave a comment on that video with your favorite team, your pick. Also, follow us on Instagram at @chainout_podcast. We'll put a pinned post out. It'll have a list of all the teams. There'll be a little vote button on it. It'll be open as soon as we get the episode out, and it typically closes sometime Saturday evening. Get your vote in. Vote for your favorite team, the team that you think is going to win. If you pick the right team, well, not even if you pick the team. Whenever we get a gift card to give away, but you've got to vote or leave a comment on the YouTube video to be eligible to win.
That's right. And then as we've been doing so far, we did an episode on Foxwood Open. We did an episode on TCO. And next week, we're doing an episode on the BC Open to kind of recap what that event was like and what happened. We've reached out to the tournament director, Craig Sheether, who is also a very amazing and storied disc golfer in Canada. Also leader of Team Canada going to Australia this year. So we have him on the show. And then we'll be looking to secure the MPO and FPO winner if we can, or have some other amazing guests on the show for you next week.
Yeah.
Now that's an exciting tournament that's going on in BC, but
Andre from Park Pro already shouted it out. We've got a big tournament happening right here in Edmonton, Alberta. It's an event that we're going to be part of. I'm excited to be a part of it. It's the River City Open. Which I recently found out. The River City Cup. I've got open on the brain.
Yeah.
Something that I recently found out is that it's the longest running tournament in Alberta.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's awesome to be a part of.
Yeah, we're a part of it. We'll be out there playing in the MA40 division. We will. What else do we got? We are sponsoring that tournament, so you'll probably see our logo out there.
Yeah. You know what? Here's a challenge for anyone who's going to the tournament. Take a photo, take a selfie of you standing next to the Chain Out podcast hole sponsor, and tag us on social media. Put it on social media and tag us, and we'll retweet or we'll repost all of your photos. So do that, and we'll put that out on our social media as well.
Yes. And if you aren't playing the tournament because you weren't able to make it in, but maybe you have a day available, you could always reach out to Tim Plabondon. He's the tournament director. He could probably have a spotting duty or some other volunteer duty for you.
Yeah.
And if that's not something that you're interested in doing, well, I don't know about you, Daryl, but on Sunday or Monday, I could have somebody caddy me and maybe help improve my game. I've got a Zuka card. It's easy to pull around, I would hope. And so I'll throw that out there.
For Jeremy having to carry his bag, and it's no fun. If you got a Zuka cart to push, it has a built-in seat, although I think that Jeremy might take that away from you, but it'll be an easy job.
Awesome. So I also see here too, did you see in our comments there regarding our contest, we've got some more prizes to go with it.
I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Ryan was
open.
Yeah.
Like you said, Ryan Bonner from Local Disc Golf has very kindly said that he will donate a Local Disc Golf patch and sticker to the winner.
That's amazing. Thank you, Ryan. Awesome. So let's get to our DGPT Disc Golf Pro Tour.
We got it last week, Jeremy. We're going to do a quick rundown.
All right, go for it. You start.
Okay, Thomas Gilbert. He'll be participating in the BC Open.
Yeah, he's been out there all week.
Yeah.
Chantal Badinsky, she just played the Preserve. She tied for 30th, and she was tied with Jennifer Smiley. And you might know that name because they were battling together at the Foxwood Open. Her next event is at the Majestic in Cedar, Minnesota. And it's an event where a lot of the FPO pros will be. So Owen, Holly Finley, Kat Murch, Raven Klein, they're all going to be there. It's going to be great to watch.
Yeah. Max Rogitnik, he'll be heading over to Europe. We already mentioned he'll be over at the Crow Call Open.
Yes, and I believe Thomas Gilbert will be there at some point as well. He's heading to that same European trip.
Yeah.
And then Sophia Donica, she'll be playing at the BC Open. And I think, Daryl, She might. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but she might be one of our top picks at the fantasy picks here on the BC Open
I
show.
don't want to give. I'm not going to give anybody any clues to my picks, but she could be up there.
There you go.
Okay. I don't know if we have any comments or questions, but we do have some. We have a.
Oh, I love it. I love it when the secret words come together. Do you see what I see?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Secret word has already been put out. I mean, it's a very fitting word. I'm totally on board with the secret word. We're not even going to ask for anybody else to put a secret word in. We're going to go with it. We're going to go with juniper.
Juniper. Yeah. Juniper. So if you are watching the end and not the beginning, go back to the beginning and you'll see what juniper is all about and why it's the secret word. Probably the cutest secret word we've had on the show.
There you go. And you don't have to go back and watch this episode again, but if you are watching it later, or even if you're watching live right now, wait till it goes up on YouTube and then put a sentence with the word juniper hidden in the sentence so that we know that you watched all the way to the secret word. Excuse me.
That's right. So at this point here, thanks everyone for watching. We will catch you at the BC Open. Watch out for our fantasy picks video that's going to be coming out. And let's kind of wrap it up the one way we know how.
Well,
okay.
I would like to reflect back on the Team Lisac training video that I watched. Yeah.
Yep.
I did notice that you had a good putt. You had a good opportunity to nail the putt on hole 11. Or hole 11 at Rundle, if you've played it. You took that berg.
I did.
It was an easy enough putt. You stood up there. You threw it towards the basket. I guess you didn't, Jane. Sorry. I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, on this weekend, though, the wind is definitely going to play on my putts when I do that at River City Cup, and likely it might be with a berg.
Yeah.
And I can blame it on the wind because there's only one thing that the wind will do to that disc when I putt. It's going to do one thing, Daryl. It can only do one thing. It's going to chain out. Thanks, everybody.
I did have it queued up, and then I found these new text things that I wanted to play around with, so I took myself off the part. Thanks, everybody, for your time. We had a great episode. Leave a comment.
Catch us at River City Cup. We'll give you stickers if you come see us. We'll have a great time. See ya on the weekend. Bye.